everybody. Welcome in. Thank you everybody for stopping by for this, our episode 106 of the Destinny Digest podcast. First things first, before we introduce everybody that's on the show tonight, you can join us live every Sunday night around 3:30 p.m. Pacific and 6:30 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Destinny Digest, and you can ask questions that help us to shape the conversation of the night. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight, so anything that you say will help us out tremendously. Episodes go live the next day on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Pocket Casts. You can help others find the show by rating and reviewing the show on your podcast platform of choice. Personally, I really like Pocket Casts. That's the one that I go to a lot. And I just every chance I get, I give us a 5-star rating, but that overwrites the rating that I had previous. So it really doesn't help us all that much. So if more people give us 5 stars, then I mean, you see what I'm asking here. Anyways, we have with us tonight special guest, Saint Kabir. Hello, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Dan. It's great to be here on Destinny Digest, man.
Yeah, great to have you. Before we talk to you about like your history in Destiny, like your podcast with Podcast versus Enemies, let's say hi to Epic Dan and Sammy Cat. Hello, thank you guys so much for joining tonight.
Hello.
Glad to have you.
I hope everyone's doing well. Excited to speak with another podcaster.
Yeah, right? Yeah, let's roll in.
Podcast.
Let's roll into that. So, Saint Kabir, if I can call you Saint Kabir,
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit of like how you got into Destiny, how you got into podcasting. Yeah, just start with those.
Yeah, I mean, I got into Destiny through being into Halo when I was a kid,
Mhm.
right? Grew up playing Halo whole life, a lot of buds, just LAN parties, the whole 9 yards, Halo 2, 3, all that stuff. So kind of natural progression to jump in and try Destiny out, right? It just made sense. Got to try a new game, and it just really stuck. And that was like a decade ago, which is
Right.
weird to say, but I mean, here we all are, 11 years later almost since that first launch. So that was kind of, just eased me in from playing old Bungie games, jumped into Destiny early on, and kind of ebbed and flowed in the first early releases of the game, which I feel like is a pretty common story, right? It was a winding road between that first couple of years into the Taken King, where we really started to pick up some steam. And then, yeah, D2 came out. That was another interesting time, right? As I'm sure we all remember for the Destiny community. But doubled down on that, started to just get connected with some more people in kind of the Destiny community. I had a lot of IRL friends that had fallen off, so I feel like that really pushed me to start looking for more of a community to get more involved in just D2 community in general, and start finding a clan. Got involved with this clan called Clan Truth. Stopped having to LFG for raids every weekend.
That's perfect.
Eventually started teaching raids, started kind of getting into that pocket a little bit and just building a big community that over there with Clan Truth. A bunch of great dudes. Shout out Witty Gaff, founder of that clan, who has done just a lot for getting people together and doing a positive thing in the Destiny community. So always big shout out to them. And yeah, I feel like after starting to get into raiding, started teaching raiding, and just started to really start to dig in more on the intricacies of the game sandbox and stuff like that, which is actually how I first was introduced to Court Projects, one of my co-hosts over on PvE, and started talking to that guy, started getting involved with a show called Massive Breakdowns. Shout out to Mercury, shout out to Kit, and started getting involved with those guys because I loved the nature of what they would bring to their show. Right now, there's people that just love playing Destiny, but there are also some people that loved researching the game's really intricate inner workings. Right, so understanding not just I think this stacks with this, but like really what's going on here. Obviously, Merc and Kit are some PvP experts, and that's kind of how PvE was born. Right, so we were working with them on the PvP side of the sandbox, the PvE side of the sandbox, and that's how we got PvE in the first place. And that was a few years ago now. We've done 145 episodes or something like that of PvE.
Heck yeah.
It's been a lot. And so I'm thankful for everybody who supported that over the years and stuff like that. And that has grown with the D2 science community We now have a parent brand called DPS, data per second, that supports a lot of people. We've gotten the chance to work with a lot of really good people in the Destiny science community, people that are just taking the time to meticulously test all kinds of interactions and values within the game that make it easier to kind of cut through the, I feel like this is the best, and understand what's really going on at the core of it. Yeah, which again, all started, if I'm going to go way back, during Escalation Protocol, when I was arguing with people in LFG about what debuff stacked with what and what didn't. And yeah, that's how I met Court for the first time. So yeah, that was kind of the impetus of PvE, who is also, my other host. Shout out Impetus, the Warlock, myself, the Titan main, and Court, the Hunter. We're a bit of a trio over there. And yeah, we cover the sandbox in a very, I don't know, meticulous way. I don't know exactly how to describe that, but yeah, that's definitely the focus of that show, and I feel like that's most of me in Destiny and me with PvE. I got a chance to start getting connected with more people at Bungie. I will say it was kind of really what started to bring me into Destiny 2 as a game, and I got the chance to work on Destiny 2 QA for a little bit on Lightfall back then, and that just kind of pulled me in even deeper into working on Destiny science related stuff and all of that, learning more about the intricacies and all of those things. And I'm sure we'll talk about the stream in a little bit, but real quick, I'll say shout out Nutty on the stream this week, who's somebody I haven't seen in a while. Nutty and I did some sandbox tests together when the Verb champion counters were first starting to be rolled out. And so as Titan main, I realized the consecration does unstops and radiant and anti-barrier. So I was trying to just push consecration in every GM, and occasionally Nutty would have to res me because the consecration might not have worked every time. But yeah, shout out to Nutty. Great to see him getting to work on so much cool stuff in the sandbox, new modifiers, all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, it's always cool when you get to make connection points like that, and just the opportunity to learn more about the intricacies of the game from a developer standpoint. Definitely builds your empathy for how you communicate feedback and stuff like that. I will say for sure too.
Absolutely. I was going to say, like, yeah, you've had like you have a very interesting outlook on that, having come from that QA side. Sammy has also come from QA side, with other games. So like, when how do you construct feedback? How do you construct feedback with that as your background? Like, what pillars do you look for, or do you try to hit when giving feedback about the game now?
Okay, so I'm going to give credit to Brennan Thorne, who was I want to say he was world's lead on Witch Queen, worked in the Raid and Dungeon team for a while. I believe he's now over at Epic Games or something like that. But this guy imparted a lot of wisdom on me, and one of the things he described was how to give meaningful feedback, especially around design, because design is very personal, right? When you're designing something, you're kind of expressing yourself a little bit. You're being a little bit vulnerable, right? You're putting yourself out there, and it can be difficult to stay kind of productive focused when somebody is giving you hard feedback. But it's also important to remember that when you're delivering that feedback, you're talking about something that somebody worked on, and then they've been working on this for like 150 hours, right? Not just like a little quick thing here. So part of the advice that he gave us was to look at it through the point of, telling somebody, okay, here is what I think that you were trying to accomplish here with what you're showing me. Here is how I feel that this has gone over, or this is what I feel is achieved, and this is how I feel we might bridge the gap between those two things. Because this kind of sets up the openness for somebody may come back and correct you and say, hey, actually, we were going more for X rather than Y, but it's interesting to hear you say that feedback. But when you start off with trying to establish, I think this is the goal of what you're trying to accomplish here. This is how I feel like you have or have not hit that goal, and this is what I think is missing from that. And just trying to be open and not, just not tear people apart. Like, speak about this work in an objective way. There's no need to insult somebody in their work, even if you think it is very bad. It's much better to just say, hey, I really do not think this is hitting the mark for the goal that we've set out to achieve. Right? It's a much kinder way than to say, man, this is trash right here, right? And it might be trash, but you don't need to say that to somebody, right?
Yeah. Kill them with kindness a little bit on that front.
Yeah, and make the kind of the infrastructure of what you're saying or what the expectations are very clear, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Shout out to Impetus and Court from PvE. I know every time I listen to your show, like I walk away with something being like, oh, okay, I understand this little piece a little bit more to kind of lock in. And so it's always been a pleasure listening in on you guys and your show. So congratulations on 145 episodes. That's crazy, dude.
Thanks, man. Yeah, shout out to, and also I gotta give credit to that whole server that kind of crowdsources all this information. I mean, there are countless number of people that spend their time making sure that we get all this stuff straight. All the information that you read in Clarity and in D2 Foundry, it takes time and a lot of effort from a lot of people to make stuff like that happen. So yeah, huge shout out to that just kind of Destiny science community for sure.
Awesome. Sammy, Epic Dan, you have any questions for Kabir before we move on? All right.
I don't think so right now.
I'm sure I do, but I guess,
I know, that's a lot of...
As we get further in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right.
Kind of on the feedback part. When I worked in retail, that was a big thing. When I worked at Apple, feedback was so important. And we got a lot of training specifically on how to give feedback, because there's a fine line between being constructive and criticizing. And it's hard to grow and it's hard to change unless they know that there needs to be a change. And that kind of, I guess that kind of connects not just to what you're saying, but in Destiny as well, just in general lately, this idea of giving feedback and whether or not content creators or people in the community who work, I'm sure you've probably seen it on Twitter.
Oh yeah, that was a huge conversation last week.
Yeah, about how to give feedback. And I think working with other people, like you were saying, how you can't just say, oh, it sucks, even if it does suck. You have to make sure that you say it in a way and present it in a way that it can be proved upon. So I like that you said that on a more creative on the podcast side, rather than just podcast dev side. Because it kind of is more of a universal. How do you provide feedback? That's so important.
It's almost like an equation, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also, if you come out and you try to, I mean, this is getting more into just like meta conversation, stuff like that. But when you acknowledge somebody and you validate them, right, along with the criticism, that can go such a long way. Hey, okay, very relevant example on something that I'm not super keen on is like new gear bonus, right? And this has come up so much. Hey, I see what you're trying to do to incentivize people to make things fresh. I think that intrinsic value in the gear is enough to drive this forward, and I don't know if we need that. I understand that players need a reason to give away, or let go of things that they've been holding on for long enough. Even just trying to start off by saying, I kind of see where you're coming from here, or I understand why you would want to do this. This is why I don't think it's right, is way better than just saying this. This is trash.
Exactly.
This sucks.
Yeah, this sucks. Yeah. It's,
Is that
and
hard for you guys, especially on the podcast, to communicate this idea of your feedback to your audience? Kind of to help them, and I guess not convince them necessarily, but to kind of help them see, okay, this is where they're coming from. This is our opinion on it. Kind of to promote that discussion. Do you find that hard to do?
Yeah, because it's easy to just say, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
It's so easy, right? And much harder to give the example of, I don't think this is going to work out well. This is why I don't think this is going to work out well, and to be more nuanced about it, because it's not quick, right? It's not
punchy,
down.
it's not a hot take.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's not going to
exactly.
get 1,000 likes.
And I see people talking about this all the time, the way that the negativity drives engagement, and then it drives content creators to be more negative, because when you create content that's getting more engagement, you tend to follow that pattern, right? And I know that is very tough to follow your point, Simicat. It can be hard to get away from that, right? And this is something that I think I don't know who it was, maybe Scaro9 was talking about the other day of yeah, like, should I just give up, or is it not even worth it anymore? And no, I think it's always worth it to try to maintain the idea of constructive ways to give feedback, and to not just give in, even if it drives more clicks and it's easy.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't want to give into that kind of attitude. And we were just talking about this earlier today about the new raid and epic raid, which I think we'll talk about later, and also just trying to maintain just like a slight tinge of openness before you experience something for the first time. Sometimes it's really easy to see something bad decision coming down the line. Sometimes it's not, and it's easy to be apprehensive to things that we don't know or are unfamiliar.
Because a lot of people are interested in what you're talking about right now. And there's so many opinions. So I think there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of fear. There's a lot of misinformation right now. People just don't know. And it seems like you really want to try and get the discussion going, the conversation. And I feel like that's probably really hard right now. So I appreciate you really working at it and really trying to just get that conversation going in a positive direction, in a productive direction.
Yeah. And even if you want to hate on it, and even if it is really bad, at least try to say it's bad in a productive way, right? That's a good point too, Sammy. It's like, you can still not like it. And I'm not telling you that you just have to, like, yes man, everything is good all the time to everything that Bungie puts out, because that's not healthy either, right? But yeah, as long as you can even just, like, try to be productive about it, I think that is a total win. And this is also, I mean, this plays into my personal life. I won't get super into, but now in work, I still work in software. And I think a lot of time of what we face when developing, you're trying to push out new features, just something that, even if it's a big advancement, is this fear of change that we were just talking about, right? And trying to manage the perception of change and all that stuff is like a shockingly large amount of my job as somebody who's worried about designing and developing, like, user interfaces for software, right? Change management is still a huge topic. And it's kind of human nature to be afraid of what you don't know.
Absolutely. Well, to get this going a little bit further down the road, what have you been playing this week, St. Kabir? I'm seeing on the list here some Risk of Rain 2.
Risk of Rain 2, I'm just like, I don't know, 8 years late to Risk of Rain 2. I don't know when that game
but
came
you're
out.
here now. Yeah.
I'm here now. Yeah. Shout out to Steam Summer Sale, because that library's been pumping up. I have had a little bit of time to get away from Destiny, kind of like we're talking about. I haven't been playing a ton of Destiny in the past 2 weeks, because that's about to change. But yeah, I mean, Risk of Rain 2 has been a blast. And it's so funny when you see things in other games, like there's this enemy type in Risk of Rain 2 every now and then that will spawn where when they die, they have this freezing explosion that happens around them. And my mind immediately went to, oh, there could be a Bane like that. You could have a Bane like that, right? Yeah. All kinds of stuff like that, though. Yeah, Risk of Rain 2 has been an absolute blast. And I'm trying to stay off of, like, Risk of Rain Twitter and subreddits and YouTube videos and all that. So I'm still just, like, totally in the dark about, like, what the true meta is or anything like that. And I think I really enjoy that, coming from a game where you're, like, so involved in the intricacies of the way that, like, damage is calculated and scalar properties and all that, to just go to a game where you don't know anything is so freeing. Yeah, and D&D, I've been running so I say playing D&D, I'm a DM, and I have been doing that for a few years now, and I'm like 9 months into a Curse of Strahd campaign with a bunch of my friends here locally, and that is, like, an absolute blast, and it is, like, such a treat for me. Yeah, love running the D&D game, and it's such a way to, like, have a unique experience of creating a game, because a lot of things about, like, running a campaign of Curse of Strahd, for people that do not play a ton of D&D or don't really know, it's really open-ended, on what exactly is going to happen, and it leaves a lot of freedom for you to try to design moments or encounters for your players and make them feel like they're having an engaging and fun story to play through. And it's like this game design itch that is getting scratched, but you're also getting feedback from people like right in front of you as it's happening, and kind of creates the way that you can like feed off each other. But yeah, huge D&D fan, love being a DM. It really fills me up. Also, as somebody that's just like really extroverted, it's like peak, right? Yeah,
I had my first session 0 this week for a project that I'll be like on. I think it's in August or something like that. So I had my first session 0 ever, and I was like, that was a fun time. I fully fleshed out a character, and I think I'm going to get rolling with that here soon.
Okay, what's your class? I gotta know.
It's fighter.
Are you at Liberty? Okay,
and it's a fighter. I'll just say that. I'm not going to say anything else about it because I don't know what else I can share. But it's just a fighter class. It's going to be fun.
Okay, yeah. Hell yeah, very very stoked to see that unfold. You said in August you're gonna be a little more public. Okay,
yeah, August and September it'll be a little bit more public.
Nice, yeah. But love D&D. Been doing that for the past couple years now, and grateful to have a good a good table, right? Because like the table of people totally makes or breaks D&D, and thankful to have some good friends to engage with there. And then build prep, man, armor pieces, mods, trying to do the day one raid, so getting all that stuff lined up, trying to make some funny builds prepped. I got a feeling that there's gonna be I got a feeling that like Strand Titan is gonna see some play in this new sandbox. There's just too many interactions between like a Bant Leap and Woven Mail and Shield Crush and Tightly Woven and all this stuff going on in the artifact. I definitely think there's going to be something there, so I'm trying to get ahead of that curve just a little bit before Edge of Fate drops in not that long from now.
Yeah, a little over a week. Let's see. Epic Dan says you've been in day one prep jail. What are you?
Yeah, man, it's jail.
Yeah.
You know? It's that time of year where I actually get to lock in for a few weeks and just prep to actually try hard, a little bit. So, like most people, we're all trying to just get those, as they have been calling them, illegal roles of like the mobility and intellect roles. So I've not done as much as a lot of people have, just a couple days so far, and just have been constantly going for that 30 mobility, 30 intellect role. Only gotten a couple pieces, but I have enough where I'm like, okay, if I were to stop now, I'm somewhat comfortable with all 3 classes, because more than likely, I don't think I'll need to go full 200%. I don't think it's going to make a big difference in my day one clear in that, It might give me a, maybe an extra 100K a DPS phase, but it won't make a big difference as long as I get like, my goal is like 110. Like if I can get 110 for all 3 classes, I think I should be good. And the other thing for me so far is just trying to make sure I have a few specific exotics per class to make sure I have those also ready for the day one, but also for just Edge of Fate, just in case they might be really good. For example, which I feel like with Saint here, he might be able to answer this question, at least to, at least shed some light. A lot of people, including myself, are assuming, because of right now, the well situation regarding super damage and weapons inside of a well, as of right now, when you're standing in a well, any weapon damage counts as super damage as well. So our assumption currently is if we go for the 200 super, for example, that will obviously increase your super damage. But if you're standing in a well, the assumption hopefully is that when you're standing in a well, your weapons will also take advantage of that super damage. We won't know until that day, but if it is, I want to make sure I have a couple of items ready. I got like a Sanguine ready, I have a Phoenix Protocol ready, and hopefully, if for some reason they decide to finally fix it and it doesn't work, then cool, whatever. But you want to make sure you have those just in case. And also, like, Boost of the Assembler could be really niche, but I think Boost of the Assembler was like something I started testing and I started reading about. And then, of course, my gear started running. I was like, well, Boost of the Assembler is now going to be fixed to be working correctly, where when you're standing in a well, you don't have to leave the well to grant the bonus of Blessing of Sky, which is 35%. So when you're staying in a well and you have Boost of the Assembler, you'll get that weapon damage of 35 plus, hopefully, the 200%. So just little things like that. Like, I have a couple things per class that I'm like, if this works, I want to make sure I have this number and this number of those things available. And that's really much kind of in my jail. I know Master Grasp is going away, but I've also been spending a lot of time in Echoes, or not Echo, but the Echo Battlegrounds arena thing.
Okay.
Just farming engrams, because if you for some reason don't want to do Master Grasp, or if you don't have a team or whatever, you can actually go get those spiky 30/30s from the Echo engrams as well, as long as you have the mobility or intellect or whatever. As long as you have one of those on your ghost, when you redeem those, they cost 2 engrams and like a 5,000 glimmer. There's a pretty decent chance in my testing, like every 4 engrams, I get like one with like 27s, 28s in 2 places. That's another really decent way for some people to get some fairly decently to max roll stuff. So it's kind of been my whole system of just living in some Nightfalls, living in Master Grasp of Avarice, and then doing Echo farming, then turning all the stuff in, dumping all my materials out, then going back and starting the process over. So that's why I call it jail.
I mean, man, shut up, failsafe.
I call it dedication.
It would be dedication if I knew all of the reasons I'm doing everything are going to matter.
Yeah.
It's more like, just in case this theory plans out to be profitable, I'll go for it. But because you never know what will what will happen in a day one. There's every day one. There's always ends up being a weapon I didn't plan to bring it out that I have to bring out.
Yeah.
Or there's always an exotic that I'm like, there's a very niche situation that this works, and I'm going to bring it out for this very specific reason. And you're like, okay, well, I didn't expect to be using Heart Shadow on Herald on day one, but here I am using Heart Shadow.
Man, you know how much mobility armor I had on my Titan Epic Dan?
You know what? I want to tell a story just 20 seconds, because I've talked about I talked about how I'm a hoarder. I'm at least on the podcast. I think on the podcast I'm Mr. 699. Dan is the opposite. He's Mr. Clean Vault. We're
rid of it all.
Opposites there.
I'll get rid of it all today.
I am not, because before they announced it, I had Prestige Leviathan armor from back before Beyond Light. That's been sitting in my vault on my Hunter. A lot of 40 mobilities that I just let sit there just because. I had a lot of 40 intellect armor, because back then the whole strat was 40 high recovery, high intellect. That was like the meta back then. And I deleted it all. It was maybe a week before the big news came out. There was every week there was someone talking about, I got data in my house telling me to delete stuff. I got this happening. Finally delete stuff. Delete your vault. Delete your vault. Delete your vault. And one day on stream, I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually do some of it. And I had all these really niche, really spiky mobility and intellect rolls. And they're all gone. So if I had actually listened to my heart instead of the community, I'm not saying I wouldn't have had to go back and farm, but I would have probably already been on 200s
right,
for all my armor. I would have had to still farm the exotics, but at least for the legendaries, man, I would have been set.
Yeah, Epic Dan, all I'm hearing right now is hoarder copium validation. Frankly, that's just all I'm getting right now.
No,
and that's what I
but
need.
to be fair, he's right. Because remember when they were like, oh yeah, all the sunset stuff, blah blah blah, you'll never be able to use it, blah blah blah. I hung on like a bunch of old weapons, like Kindled Orchid and stuff like that. They were just in my vault, like archived in them, not using them because you can't use them. And then Bungie was like, oh yeah, those old weapons, you'll be able to use
They're
them
all
more.
useful now.
Do you know how loud I yelled vindication when that happened? I was like, yeah, I was
so
right.
true.
I held on to these things and now I can. Are they the best? No. Are they gonna get like even worse with time? Absolutely. But I didn't care. I was like, you know what? Vindication.
It still won.
I was right. Exactly.
Yeah.
The spite was right.
I literally brought that up in my chat a few days ago. I was like, I've had like some like Kindle Orchid and a couple other weapons like that just sitting in my vault for years, just as, key like mementos basically. And the I will say the only reason I don't use them as much as I would like currently is that some of them don't have origin traits, and unfortunately some origin traits can make or
Are really
break
worth it.
something. Some of them are really good. And some of the older weapons just have perks that have just been outlasted. For example, I don't see myself going for Kindle Orchid as much because Rampage isn't as good. Kill Clip is not nearly as dominant. And we have a lot of verbs, for example, on a lot of our weapons that do the ad clear nearly as much. So we're not really pushing for, that Rampage and that Kill Clip, for example. They're still really nice to use. But it's just it's weird how you can see. I remember when Kindle Orchid was like broken, it was like really strong in game content, and now you use it in the same content, maybe not the same activity, but the same kind of content. And there's clearly a variation in. I could be using a destabilizing weapon. Or I could be using incandescent or bolt shot or dragonfly, and it's just weird because I'm still doing the same strike. I'm still doing arms deal or something, but like you just have better tools. And it could be a lot of reasons. Maybe it's just the artifact leans into verbs a bit higher, but they're still really cool. But I still think of that as vindication. And like, you're never going to, not a single person will ever convince me to delete stuff in the future now. It won't happen.
Just get rid of it, dude.
But also,
just get rid of it. You don't need it.
Yeah, just
like,
nope.
No. But also the thing
Keep
is,
it all.
for example, for
Keep
Kindle
it.
Orchid, it's not as good. 100% it's not as good as it used to be. But that weapon feels so nice to use. And there's no other weapon
really
that
nice.
feels exactly. There's no other weapon that's quite exactly that. So like you can still use it. It's not as good, but like you're just gonna go around and like mess around in strikes or whatever. You can still put it on and just have fun with it. But yeah, for harder content, absolutely not. But
21% Delirium is another good example. Is like it used to dominate, and it doesn't feel as strong as it used to, just because we have other machine guns that just have perks that just fits into this era.
100% agreed.
Yeah,
but there's still fun.
It also had that weird. It didn't have a unique version of Killing Tally for a while that was better than it should have been, and that eventually got corrected like a long time ago. There was some weird stuff going on.
Back in Crown, it did, because back in Crown, it had the Killing Tally where you could stow it, and we put it back out. It still had ×3, but it also had, which is what I had to use for my 2-man of Gowron. You could shoot the pots. You could shoot inanimate objects and trigger Killing Tally as well.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So you could like just get real quick, just shoot a couple pots randomly in like Leviathan and get instantly to ×3. So little intricacies like that. I think the overflow part is still cool. But Killing Tally is just on that weapon doesn't feel necessary. Yeah. It was broken though.
It was fun, but it was broken.
moving from that, Sammy Cat had a little bit of a celebration this past week. Sammy,
Just
do
a
you mind?
teeny tiny
Do you
one.
mind telling the people at home what you accomplished this week?
A little bit.
Wait, did you
I
manage to do it?
finally, it wasn't Ghost of the Deep, but Warlord's Ruin, Master Warlord's Ruin. I completed solo with all bows, no HUD. It is done.
Let's go.
And that was after like 770 or like 790, I don't know, unintentional deaths. That run ended up being, the run total was 19 hours, 19 and a half hours. The stream was 29 hours. And it took almost 10 hours to do all of the actual encounters and transitions. And the reason why it took so long is because on Tuesday is when the reset happened for the rotation. So we could no longer, as of reset on Tuesday, access Master Warlord's Ruin. The next time would have been end of August after a brand new expansion. So none of my builds would have worked. And I stayed in the instance for 19 hours.
Had no choice.
Crazy, dude.
I didn't go
Had no
AFK,
choice.
like actual AFK for longer than 10 minutes. I would always run back to my computer to move my character and shoot. So, yeah, it was, there were a lot of tears during, and this was after I had actually gotten a second shout out from Bungie on their live
Yeah.
their live
Yeah,
streams.
saw that.
So I was in the middle of the middle encounter at one point, and I was just about ready to start crying. Because all of these I mean, it was like in shock.
Right.
I don't know how many hours in. I can't leave this instance, or it was a lot, but finally finished it,
Hell
and
yeah.
it's crazy. I'm
Oh
very,
yeah,
very
that's right.
proud
You
of
don't
Congratulations,
have your
bud.
game crash too, right? You don't have the
Nope,
issue
it
I
did
do.
not
I could never
crash.
do that. Yeah,
I was gonna say, how did you keep it going for so long?
I could never have that.
I've only ever had it crash 3 times or 4 times since Shadowkeep. I've gotten the broccoli runtime errors, and that was only ever in Ghost of the Deep and Ekthar after I would shoot too many thralls and there was too much going on. Or not thralls. After I would
couldn't
shoot
crash,
too many
man.
enemies,
Yeah.
then it would eventually crash.
My 6 hours is the longest I can play before a crash. Sometimes the game is nice unless we play for 7 hours straight. So it's only been happening to me since Lightfall. Before that,
Yeah.
I could play forever like Sammy does, but like I can't do that kind of challenge. I would love to, but it's like, well, the game decides it's time for me to stop playing.
Yeah.
You need a break, Dan.
Yeah, it's good to think about the mental image of TMG being like, oh yeah, new bow stuff. Shout out Sammy Cat, and Sammy Cat's like in the middle of like almost on the edge of emotional breakdown, like hardest challenge you've ever conceived in your life. It's good, man. It's good. That's a hell of an accomplishment for sure.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Now I just got to do Ghost of the Deep. That's
Yeah.
going to be the hardest one I've ever done.
Well, and you're gonna have to change loadouts because that one pops up after the new update, right?
Week of.
Week
Yeah.
of. Gotcha. Okay. So yeah.
But there's no way I'd be able to do it that week. I will not have. Also,
Now
do
with
we know
the
what's going
light-
on with Master and such?
Yeah,
don't
that's
Now
know
with
what's
the light
going on
level
with
change too,
difficulty.
right? Because you got to get back up to. Oh, that's
Because there's no
Yeah.
Grandmaster Nightfalls,
nope.
but you can still access Grandmaster difficulty. And the way that they made it seem is you can access that all like right away after you complete it or something, or like the normal or something like that. you can access
Well, there's
it.
a lot of questions they need to answer
Yeah.
about that.
Is there going to be dungeon rotations?
Yeah,
We
that's.
don't
I think
know.
the dungeon, from what I've read, the dungeons are still on their same rotation order.
Okay.
But no one knows until
we pick it up next Tuesday.
Whatever,
Yeah.
What the whole... Because now you're going to be able to pick your difficulty and all that stuff. But I don't know if anyone knows, are the dungeons a part of the portal in any way, shape, or form?
So I think this is a good transition.
Yet.
This is a good transition point.
I know raids aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, we had the second Edge of Fate dev stream that had a really cool... how many people here thought of Control when the trailer went off? Did anybody...
I didn't, because I haven't played it.
the
A lot of people
cinematic
in
stuff
my
you're talking
community
about?
said
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
They said with Control, like...
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, he opened that door and there was just a phone on the stand, and I was like, wait, hold on. This has got to be Control, right? No, not at all. I want Destiny to be in the Remedyverse so bad. That'd be so cool.
I mean, it's technically possible given the
Technically
time
possible.
change, golden age. Yeah, I'm not. It's possible.
Oh, dude, Alan Wake, Destiny 2 crossover win.
Dan is like foaming at the mouth right now.
It would be sick. It would be sick. So yeah, we had some information about the campaign. So the campaign first experience is available on Brave and Legendary, same as before, and completing the Legendary will make you powerful, your power level ready for the contest raid race by completing that. We will then be getting world tiers. So after the first campaign completion, the new Fabled Mythic difficulties will unlock. Power is fully enabled for Fabled Mythic, with Fabled being power level 150, and what you're expected to be after your first campaign clear, and Mythic is power level 200. Fabled is shown to have tier 2 drops as Kepler rewards. Mythic shows tier 3. Fable and Mythic have their own specific quests, part of the post game, taking you through some of the big campaign missions again with new curated weekly modifiers. Banes introduces new encounters, incentives for these titles, cosmetics, and more rewards. And then finally, their Mythic specifically has a variant of the Kepler armor from its world tier quest that it with different set bonuses and unique shaders. This is all from a Reddit post wrap up by GIF v Kayla on Reddit. I'm going to post the link in here so that folks in chat can look at it. What are we thinking about, like the campaign and the world tiers?
I think the campaign is pretty much like what we're quote unquote used to, so that is not really a surprise or anything new. The world tier will be interesting. I'm kind of curious of how they're going to apply that. I have a question though. That does make me think. Anybody knows if Kepler is going to be like the Pale Heart, where if you instance in it, you're kind of alone, or is it like
apparently
the
it
usual
is, yeah.
destination? It's alone. It's like a solo destination.
Yeah.
Ew.
I feel like it would have to be, given that you have control over the tiers of enemies and like
tiers,
modifiers and stuff like that. Yeah.
The only way it gives you randos is there's whatever the world activity is that you can matchmake into, just like how Pale Heart has Overthrow.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of my biggest dislikes about Pale Heart is the fact that you don't have a quote unquote destination. Like you have a destination, but it's not a regular destination.
It's not a destination with the exploration of like, oh, there's a rando, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It seems that they've been wanting to move away from that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that personally.
But again, like they said, like they just said, it would be kind of difficult to have matchmaking with the world tiers.
Unless you have a dedicated fire team that's with you. Going in, you're kind of along the same lines.
People will do that.
But even then, like, imagine. I feel like they could still have the issue of it feeling barren if, say, most people end up playing on, like, say, World Tier 3. And and no one's playing on World Tier 1 or 2 or 4 or 5. And then you'll have a person who then does feel like, well, there's nobody here because most people are only playing on World Tier 3 or something. And no one's playing on the hardest one because they feel like there's not enough incentive to go into World Tier 5. And they just, I'm just going to farm World Tier 3 because it's the most efficient.
It compounds the issue.
It's an issue. Yeah. It's an issue that Division has, which Division has a World Tier system like this game does. And there are times where in Division, you will have trouble matchmaking content because each location in Division has incursions and raids and activities. Their game doesn't call them straight. They're basically strikes, but those strikes can be match made. But it only match makes you with people on a similar tier and like all these other like barriers that it has to go through before it filters out players.
Yeah.
And every time I've played, just getting back into it casually, sometimes I can't find anyone because no one's on a beginner tier or something because they've already gone through it. It like Dan says, can compound an issue, and it's kind of, at least from the way I've looked at it, I do wish they continue this, 9 players or whatever the max is going into a world randomly. But it's a unfortunate better choice to make it fire team, like match made fire teams only. It probably will suck for players who are going to do this content solo, but you probably have fewer issues.
No, that's fair. I didn't think about that.
I don't agree with it, but I understand their choice.
Yeah.
We've had
only
this,
because I've struggled with this in other games.
We've had this conversation about raids in the past of like what makes a good raid, or like what's easy in a raid, what's hard versus hard in a raid. And like I think we've come around to the conversation of like there's room for easy, there's room for hard raids.
Yeah.
Like for like across the board for activity. I think we're starting to see, especially with like the introduction of the Pale Heart, I think we're just going to start seeing them decide to choose between different experiences on planets. Like, we're used to just running into people out in the wild, and that's an experience that is like true to the core of Destiny, as we've known it. But I'm interested to see this world tier system through, and to have that be an experience that is available in Destiny as well. Like you still have the locations where you can bump into people. Usually the locations that are free, that people can just kind of free roam around. And you're always going to have that, but you also like are going to have this new world tier experience that at least like you can target loot, which that's going to be sick.
For sure.
It does feel like they're limiting that social aspect to
a little bit.
Really
To the
only
tower.
the tower.
Yeah.
Which I'm not against. It's just a tough pill to swallow when you're used to probably 80% of the destinations you go to just always having some other semblance of like
life.
I don't want to say community, but like you just feel like you're not alone in that location, right?
Yeah. I miss that on the Pale Heart. It makes
and that is
me
kind
not
of
really
tough
wanna go there.
it's tough because 9 years of that, every time we get a new planet, we see, there's a lot of people on the throne world. There's a lot of people here, a lot of people there. And it was definitely jarring, but.
And that also brings me to something that like St. Kabir was talking about earlier, was like, you're not going to have necessarily events like Escalation Protocol in that same like world space. Like, and you're not going to randomly stumble in on like a group of people completing, like going through a tier of that activity and being like, oh, well, I can hop in here too and see what I can do.
I do miss that part though. That is something I would miss, because imagine you had that happen in Overthrow. Imagine a Pale Heart just stumbling across,
9 people.
a team that's already at the boss.
But it was that, but also just like random blueberries that you would help sometimes. Like I do that I haven't done it in a while, but I used to do that. Like go to Cosmodrome because that's where you get all the new lights, right? That's their first step. And like sometimes you go and you help them finish some stuff. But I remember a bit less after the vaulting happened. But you would go on the older planets and you'd see somebody trying to do something and you're like, oh, I think I know what they're doing. And then you'd go without talking to them, without chatting or anything, you'd just go and help them complete it, right? And I kind of miss that. It was like,
But you got to remember the sad part about that. Remember the part of that where you would be in the middle of helping them and then they go through an instance and then they're just gone.
I know,
so
I know. I know. But like,
be the
you know,
worst part.
core parts of like where people don't disappear, or when you try to help them and then they'd leave, like they just go away, and you're like, oh god damn it. But still, it was fun. I don't know. It was like a way of kind of connecting with people without. I don't know. We're just helping people, and it was fun. And I missed that.
It's a
bit.
tough
I think
decision.
It's less of a thing.
If they want to make like the campaign more
if...
challenging or something, it's just
When
I feel like they've wanted this idea of in-game destinations for a long time. It's to start with Dreaming City, right? And you had the Tangled Shores, easy public space, and kind of weirdly their first stab of it, Dreaming City is still very public. It's a significantly harder when in the time of which it came out, right? It was way more challenging. There was secrets to it, all kinds of layers on that, and we've seen them kind of dabble with this. Even when you look at the Nether, right? You got 3 different versions of the Nether. There's like the just kind of patrol-y version, there's like the match-made version, and then there's a difficult non-match-made version. And I think that when I see the tiers of the Nether, I feel like that's what they're trying to replicate over here on this new space, where maybe, there's like this match-made version where in the Nether you can kind of just go poke around, right? And it's a bit restricted, but more or less it's like a patrol space. And I mean, we've seen a little bit of that when we got the Leviathan that came back, right? There was like the big Leviathan event in there, and then there was also a lot of
stuff.
Instance kind of stuff in there.
It was still technically a public space.
Yeah, you did run into
in the hub, right? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
But there was a version where you could like matchmake in. You could load in and you randomly find people. But then there was one where you could like matchmake for the public event there.
The public event, yeah.
I feel like that's a good mix.
To have a public space that has more than like a 9-player instance. I know that would be massive, but
didn't they say they couldn't? I feel like I read somewhere in one of their long blog posts when they got super technical.
Yeah,
maybe it was around the time 12 Guardian raids came out.
Yeah,
they talked about
it was Clankar.
They talked about how they talked about the servers and how
they couldn't handle it.
They can only do so much, and like how when 6 players get into an instance, they no longer let players into that location at all, because 1, they wanted to keep it to where people could fill in their own fire teams, and 2, it was a recipe for disaster once they got above X amount of numbers. And that's why they limited so much of the content around either 6 fresh players at all, or 3 fire teams, which is just interesting. And I was like, okay, well, I guess if I kind of understand this, doesn't make sense, but still give me my 12, 24, 48.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Let's all pop supers in unison, all 12 of us.
Yeah.
Let's make as many orbs as possible.
But one of my favorite memories with public spaces, and this is totally romanticizing it, but one of my favorite experiences was Escalation Protocol on Mars. I was on Xbox, and it was really hard to complete it, right?
Beginning.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
It was
so hard. You had to work with other people.
Oh,
so
100%.
We would end up inviting other people in the instance to the point where we had an Xbox party chat with 9 strangers in it, all like teaming up on each other to get this done. I met one of my mods and one of my good friends through that alone. We kept running into exploding thrall and punching them. I remember that distinctly. But I don't think we would be able to get that in Destiny today. I just don't think that's how the players are. I don't think that's how the community is. But there was something about how there was a real sense of community in those public spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
100%.
it was larger. I feel like it's not as easy to do that, especially on PC, even with Discord. It's a little more closed off.
Discord
Yeah,
definitely
but-
has changed it. I don't know. I don't want to say for the worse, but like, I don't know. Because I was just, as you were saying that, thought about how many times I just invited the random and was like, can I use you as an anchor
Yeah.
to help
Yes.
me get some more people
Yeah, yeah,
in this
yeah.
execution
Yeah,
protocol? And they'd be like, sure. And I was like, well, can you give me lead if you decide to leave?
Mhm.
That way we still hold the anchor and can
Exactly.
still fill someone in. And they were like, yeah, sure, cool. And
We'll
they would get some
guarantee
stuff
that-
and then leave.
We'll guarantee that you
Yeah.
get stuff. We'll guarantee that you get stuff.
And I
I
was
know
like, I promise I'm not going to kick you.
Yeah.
You can hold fire team lead.
Mhm.
Just if you decide to leave, pass it off to someone else that with actually our group, and then you can leave, do whatever you gotta do.
Yeah. I want to say
And
that's how
I
it's
just
supposed to
can't
be.
imagine
Trust.
doing
My
that
community.
now. Yeah.
Mhm.
So much trust with people you didn't even know.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I think
that
it
was
was just like
years ago.
Yeah.
Couldn't get
I was
that
also
now.
battling
also
that
just-
days before Steam.
yeah, I think that was different too, to be fair. But like, I don't know. Like, I remember I met a ton of people like before Fireteam Finder was a thing.
Mhm.
At some point, I think during Arrivals or whatever, I have a friend of mine, and like, we were just doing helps for Whisper and 0 Hour, and like we would literally go to the farm, and some people were like, "Oh, I need help for that," and we'd grab them there at the farm and just be like, "Yeah, we'll run you. We promise we can give you the emblem because it was when it was busted and you could kill
Mhm.
everything in 5 seconds." And like we did so many runs like that, and then after that we were like, "Oh, if you want to do it next week for the Catalyst or whatever, just message us on Discord." And like I met friends and I met people like that, like just going to the farm and then doing that, because I feel like the community was more like that back then. It was more like, "Oh yeah, this person needs help. I have nothing else to do. I know how to do this. Sure, let's go. Let's do this." It's not really a thing anymore, but also the chat has changed. Like Bungie has made changes to that itself.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's wildly different.
I never have public chat on, ever.
No.
Oh, anymore
me
I don't.
neither.
I used to, not anymore.
Ever. And I don't know if it's changed because I am a streamer. I am a creator and people recognize me. I don't know if that's part of it,
Yeah.
or because of my experiences with LFG, especially on PC.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So I don't know if that's part of it. Sometimes I wish that I could experience the game like a non-content creator. I don't know
Yeah.
if you guys ever get this, but
I
it's
do
like,
sometimes, yeah.
what is it like
need
to
a-
just go in there and
you need a second account.
Yeah, Sam, you need a burner account. I'm gonna just go ahead and tell you.
Yeah, exactly. You need a
That's what it's
burner
gonna have to
account.
be. And yeah.
I don't put enough effort into this account.
Oh my
No,
God.
exactly.
I haven't
Sammy.
I haven't played
Sammy,
any of
The
make
thought
Echoes.
of doing the New Light experience is
Oh my God,
alone
it's
Sammy,
bad.
Sammy, make your burner account. I hate bows. Nobody will even suspect.
Oh my
Oh,
God,
it's very
yes.
true, though.
It's impossible.
Unless
You know.
It's
they
impossible.
expect it
they would expect it.
because
Or
yeah.
they listen to this episode.
Mm.
Like
Shoot.
Well, now they know.
we got
Guys,
40.
don't Google
Yeah.
it.
Don't
You messed
don't
up,
Google
Dad.
I hate bows. But
Oh God. No, but
going-
the New Light experience is not it though. Having
Yeah.
done it not even recently, but a while ago. No, I'm sorry, Bungie has not fixed their issues. there.
yeah, and it doesn't look like they mentioned nothing about it in the dev stream
Yeah.
either. But what they did, so they did talk about Kepler. They said Kepler is split into 4 major regions, kind of like what we're seeing in like the Nether activities and things
Yeah.
like that. So 4 major regions, features free roam like normal. Major regions have multiple major encounters, similar in size to Lost Sectors, but are more complex and have more mechanics. They have puzzles that you need Kepler abilities for, and think of combat, especially on Mythic. There are HVTs and destination materials. Other planet materials can be converted into Kepler mats, which I think is going to be useful at least. Like if you can convert all your planetary mats just directly into the new stuff, the new, that consolidates so much of your inventory. And then one of the incentives for free roam is to extract these new materials. Completing Kepler regions will unlock side quests that are available to complete at any time. We have like secrets on Fabled and Mythic difficulties that will have specific secrets to each one. They'll be available in the campaign, but you'll also have to want to take it slow and find everything you can. Fable and Mythic, you do expand on the content through with your new abilities. We have a new vendor called the Altar of Relativity, with faded ciphers, another material combined with destination materials to purchase specific items at the destination vendor. We're going to have campaign playlists added in with weekly rotation playlists similar to heroic playlists from the past. And then they did mention a Kepler activity which was time gated. I know my major question going into this was like, well, what are we paying for a lot? Because we saw in the previous dev stream, we saw a lot of information about the free stuff, about the quality of life UI updates and everything. And I think we also saw a little bit of that in the sandbox changes in the TWID last week, and how they're planning on changing like how armor, especially exotic armor, is featured. So my question here is, when we had this conversation in chat, is I feel like, so they showed us a lot about Kepler this time around. They told us about the campaign, and the comms on this, we've received a lot of communications about the free stuff, about the quality of life stuff, about the portal, which is free to everybody. Do you feel like maybe they aren't communicating necessarily what was in the expansion, because you kind of, from history of DLC, you kind of know what to expect from a Destiny campaign, and they don't necessarily maybe have to like keep driving that home?
I think they're trying to keep it as close-lit as possible. I like they from what I gathered and from what I kind of got, the feeling that I got from Bungie is that they're trying to go for like secrets, maybe like try to keep stuff secret. Like they're like, oh yeah, explore, right? That was one of the thing that kind of grabbed my attention. They're like, oh yeah, you can go do the campaign for like all of it, blah blah blah, but then you can also like find secrets and
you're going to want to do more.
Yeah, you're going to want to do more. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's never really been a selling point for them, or like a whatever, like a little addendum if you want. That's never been a thing for them really. So I was like, oh, and I know they've been kind of trying to do that with Pale Heart, was like trying to make things that you stumble upon, or like within the story you'll get some kind of interesting thing or whatever. So I think that might be why they're like, oh yeah, we're not really going to talk about it, because we just want people to go in half blind or as blind as possible, and then just discover all of it. I remember because like when Scarrow was here, right, he was like, yeah, I tried to go outside and like try to like look around and stuff, and like Bungie was like, nah,
yeah,
go back.
It's not happening.
Like, no, don't do that. So I think that's kind of what they're doing. They're like, we're not really going to talk about it, and we're going to like hope that people don't really raise that flag of like, Bungie doesn't really talk about what we should expect about the story and the expansion itself, not just the quality of life stuff, but like the expansion, and then hope that people don't really question it too much. And then when they get in, they get the full kind of surprise. I think that might be, you know how we used to have like Corridors of Time and like all of these surprises, like Whisper. When Whisper came out, it was like absolutely surprised, right? I think that like that, and that was something that people really loved, right? Those were events that people absolutely went berserk over. So I think that might be what they're trying to recreate. Maybe I'm speculating 100%, but it feels a little bit like they're trying to keep it secret as long as possible, and hoping that whatever big reveal they have is going to strike a chord with a positive chord with the community.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Yeah, I also think that the media strategy for Edge of Fate has been kind of odd, to be honest with you, especially when you compare it to former releases. And not that I do not like the content that was delivered on that first huge iteration of there was a bunch of people that got to go straight out to Bungie and play test the game. And I think that that's so good because it's probably a really great way to get feedback on how is the expansion looking? What is the feeling, right? What's the hype? What do you think about this so far? But to have that as the first kind of big media push that you release is like really odd and does not line up at all with Bungie's previously marketing strategy. And then to come back and do a live stream, I think the first live stream got a lot of flack for this because they're reiterating a bunch of stuff that I watched videos on that 3 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of known
4 times. Yeah, and so I think that was it's just kind of an odd media strategy. Not that I wouldn't want them to do that, but typically I would be expecting that they would. Maybe they would come out and do a stream, kind of briefly show some of that stuff. They would do a developer article, talks about that a little bit more. They got a bunch of content creators come out and connect directly with them and make a bunch of content based on that. And then that is kind of what is really building the hype is now you're seeing some in-depth video on somebody trying out a bunch of different stats or messing with the world weapons and playing a different mission. And this is how I feel about the new Titan exotic or whatever the case may be, right? It was really cool to watch a lot of that content, but it was definitely a really odd cadence. And to the point, I think, it's already been mentioned a little bit, but most of the stuff that I am the most excited about right now is like free-to-play quality of life stuff. So new stat rework, new armor 3.0s, all this kind of stuff that's all free. And now I know that we've got a new raid. Okay, we know we have a new destination, a new campaign, and all these things, but man, I don't know anything about this raid, and it's still not really clear how I was just going to say, how are the 9 like associated with Kepler, and what exactly is it that's like drawing us in there? Maybe there's some lore there that I don't know yet, but I do think that they are trying to like hold some of that mystery close to chest, and also that they are for sure diverging their just like general media strategy to try out some new stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do know that so they talked about comparing the size of Rise of Iron, but they talked about it as like the destination is going to have like a lot of depth for the campaign and the post game experience. It's one of the deepest destinations that they've ever built. Is something that they touted during that stream, and then the epic raid. We definitely know we're paying for the epic raid, right? Like the upgrade of what the raid is going to get with Ash and Iron when that comes out, like 6 months down or 3 months down the line. So there are things that they're showing us. I think people want to know like are there strikes and things of that nature, and like
I don't think that's a strike. No.
Yeah. Well,
it's weird because if you look at, I hate to bring up Final Shaping, if you look at the history of just the way that they've rolled out the media storm, the hype train, whatever you want to call it. Outside of the story, it doesn't seem that they're holding too many things close to the chest. At least from my perspective of looking at it.
Right.
Obviously, the story you don't want to just tell. It's not like it's not as easy as just saying you're going to fight the witness, go kill him. That's your main goal. That's it. Obviously, that's an easy thing to do and not hide, not expose what the story is. Whereas this one, it doesn't seem, I don't want to say necessary, but it doesn't seem that their main talking point is the story right now, which I'm personally okay with. I would like to explore it myself. Cool, whatever. But looking at it in totality, it doesn't seem that they are holding secrets. It seems that they're telling you what you're getting, and they're telling you what you're getting. It doesn't seem like, at least for me, that like we have a hidden mission coming. We have 3 new whatever coming. It seems that you're gonna get this, you're gonna get this, you're gonna get this, and you're gonna get this. This is what you're paying for. And I said this last week, and I was like, I'll just wait until I read the TWID and until we see what they show on the not the podcast, the dev stream. And unless they are holding a lot of things back, which personally, if they were holding things back, it's not a great decision.
Yeah,
because you probably it's a perfect time to give your community and your possible consumers something to want to invest their time in and invest their money in. And like we've all kind of said, all the stuff that mainly has us excited doesn't cost anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's getting this armor system, which I think I'm exceptionally excited for the armor system.
Mm-hmm.
I'm exceptionally excited for a lot of things that is coming to the game, but none of them cost anything.
Right.
So if someone's excited for the content, but they're not excited for Edge of Fate, they can still play all the content and get like all the things. They can still get the firing range. They can still get the whole Armor 3.0 system.
Mm-hmm.
But as far if they look at Edge of Fate, they don't need to pay for it. That's, you know, I don't know if that's a good idea to not put something out there that is going to make me say, okay, that one thing makes me want to buy.
This is exactly what you're getting.
You know, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like the regular Bungie hype machine, like we all know it, right? We all respect it because it's so great at its job. Let's be real. Every time, like every expansion we had before, we're like, oh, wow, amazing. Even seasons, sometimes they nail it.
Yeah.
Am I crazy to say that? Like I haven't seen that Bungie hype machine yet so far for this expansion, or did I miss something? Maybe I missed something, but
I don't think you did.
to me,
no. Yeah.
I feel like there's no hype machine this time around, and I'm so confused by it because it's an expansion. It's not a season.
It's just that the hype machine looks different. Like I'm looking at the I'm looking at the Year of Prophecy page right now.
The hype machine came from the creators, like Kabir said. Like it's Final Shape did the polar opposite. They announced the trailer, they announced all this stuff, and then a few weeks later, after they announced these exotics and stuff, is when the content creators that went there came out and said, "This is what I got to play. I tested this out. Starting with that, it's kind of okay. You showed me the ending of a book before I got a chance to read it, basically. Type of situation.
Yeah. That's kind of what it feels like, because to me,
like I was really excited for all this stuff a month ago, and so now watching the death streams and being like, well, I could tell you what that was. Like I know about the firing range, I know about this, I know about that. You might have the ability to explain it from a dev's point of view, but I still kind of know what the firing range is going to do. I know about this cross. I think the only thing new was like the crossbow so far.
Yeah.
That was the only thing so far that I can say, okay, I didn't know about that.
And like that's cool,
everything else.
But you know,
it's weird. It's so strange because like everybody is saying right now, I don't particularly feel hype about the expansion. Like I'm happy about some of the changes. Some of the change I'm like wary of. I'm like, okay, we'll see. I'm giving it a shot. Like I'm letting it be a thing, but I'm like, I don't know if I like that, but we'll see. But then
I got one. Well, go ahead.
But I was just gonna say, like, but the expansion itself, I'm just like, okay, I guess I don't know. I'm not excited about it. I'm like, I don't really know anything about it. Like, what am I supposed to be excited about?
I think this is a dangerous tightrope of trying to keep the mystery going, and they don't want to reveal who is the real enemy. You know, we don't really know what the enemy is going to be like, and they obviously want to play that close to chest. I know there's going to be like a narrative panel going on with Allison Lures, right, at GCX.
Yeah.
Interested to hear maybe she drops some news on there. And I think another really like cap-off statement on this project probably, if we look back at expansion like Witch Queen, that I would say had a lot of really interesting quality of life updates with the, Void 3.0, we started getting the sandbox rolling out and stuff like that. But what about that was actually part of paying the money for Witch Queen, and what about that was free?
Yeah.
And I think there'd be this interesting delineation of when you really start to look back at the expansions, it's much easier over time to blur the lines of like, oh yeah, well, especially when you start really going far back into the expansions that had like crazy quality of life adjustments, like Forsaken or the Taken King.
Yeah,
how much in Forsaken was actually free, and how much were you paying for? And that's
interesting. Forsaken was fully paid, wasn't it? Technically,
I do remember that. Well, I do remember that Forsaken. I had a few clanmates who didn't have Forsaken, and it was just funny seeing their loadouts, because their loadouts were half Forsaken and half Red War. It was just interesting seeing, because they had some of the improvements, but not all of them.
But not all
it
of
was just a really interesting system that they had.
Okay, so this is an interesting point right here, and this is where I think maybe they're relying on. Maybe there are some secrets here. Hopefully that's the case, and I think we were all
I think there's something.
that there be something, right? And so maybe the strategy is that they want to pull you in with all these quality of life, Armor 3.0, new stat rework, new guns, and all this stuff. And then you get pulled in and you realize how much more that you're still not experiencing because you didn't pay that money, right? And now that's like the driver to like pull people back into the game on the wholesale and then sell them on the expansion, rather than sell them on the expansion by, trying to convince them to come back to the game by buying the expansion,
activity,
right?
Yeah.
I just think it's a weird time to do that, though. Like, it's not the idea of it itself. Yeah, the idea of it itself is not like, oh, you want to keep mystery, you want to like everything that. Yeah, sure. But the thing is, I'm just thinking like, but you're trying to start a new cycle in the game, right? You wrapped up your whole saga of Light in the Dark and so on and so forth, and now you're trying to start a new saga, quote unquote, or you're trying to move the narrative towards something completely different that people have no idea about. So is it really a good time to put that much mystery? I mean, absolutely, you want to keep some stuff secret. I get that.
I feel like that's more. I've had this discussion a lot this week, and I've come down to the conclusion personally that most of this entire expansion is going to fall on the shoulders of the new dev team leads.
Yeah,
it's obvious that they want to put their stamp on it and make this like charting a new course, and they want to make bold choices, and I'm 100% behind that. And it's just an odd time because normally we don't have a full narrative team dev, like the full team that's leading this game doesn't happen with a new book. I hate to keep using a book as an example, but it just feels like you have this whole thing and a new book is coming in and we're having a whole new writer just push it. It can feel kind of jarring because they have different philosophies, different reasons of making choices. And it's kind of tough because most people that are going to play this content that aren't creators, that aren't people like us who are going to probably be playing this anyway, are either very long lapse players or players who have been looking for a new jumping off point to start getting involved in Destiny. And sometimes it's kind of tough from an outside's perspective to jump in when the train's going. That we always talk about how it's kind of rough for a new player to get involved in the middle of a story, and wanting this to be this is a really good time to get into the game or get back into the game after years of not being a part of the community. And then they look at it and be like, well, I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know what reason I have to invest my time back into it. And I've had that issue explaining that to a few players who have come back in the past month saying like, what's the game about to feel like? And I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, nobody.
Does the stuff you've watched that I've watched as well look cool to you? Does that look like it's worth your money? I can't answer that for you. Yeah, I'm playing it anyway, so I can't really, I don't know.
I think when they introduced these, the content, the concepts, everything like that, especially with the content creators to start, it was one of those things where the discussion started then. Before it was all questions. Now we have information and the conversation started, and very quickly the conversation started to dwindle a little bit. And then we finally get to the dev streams, which was much further later, or much later.
Was that like 2 weeks before or 3?
It's like maybe 3 weeks.
It was like 2, 3.
Wow.
It was weird.
Yeah.
The conversations turned into, instead of conversations, more critique of it, because we didn't know anything. A lot of it was discussing or was guessing. So it's like we went from, okay, the content creators get this information. We have to go between them and cherry pick what information we want from what creators. We might miss it.
Right.
And then we come in and we have to wait 3 weeks to actually get information from the devs to know what's important. And by that time, the discussion had kind of dwindled down. Like, by last dev stream, I was like, oh, okay, the story, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I've already heard these conversations. I really just, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be excited about because I've already had these conversations.
It was just a weird set of steps
Yeah, it's a new dance move
for the
It's-
marketing.
It's a way we've never seen
don't think
them
it worked.
do that before.
No,
Yeah.
I agree with you, Sammy. I don't think it worked the way they wanted
Yeah.
it to, because like you said, one of the biggest thing was like, oh, content creators get the first scoop.
Mhm.
Okay, but me as a non-content creator, as more of like a normie,
Mhm.
how am I supposed to get the information that I need? And did the content creator get
Yeah.
all the information that was needed? And are they going to relay all of that information, all of them, right? Because from what I've seen and how Scarrow was talking about it, and just in general, the other content creators too, they didn't really get like a briefing. They were more like, oh, here's the game, play the game,
Mhm.
and then
And just explore. Yeah.
explore.
I did hear some people
very
saying that like they just
constricted.
wanted to just give them the ability to just cover some of the stuff. But
Yeah,
There was so
personally, I
much
would have been
overlap,
better
though.
excited for if we had the 2 dev streams and then this week all the creators were able to
Yes.
post their stuff. I would
that
have
would have
preferred
been
that.
Yeah.
that would have been better in my opinion.
To help
100%
answer
agree
the
with that.
questions, to explore it
Yeah.
a little bit more,
Mhm.
to keep the conversation going. Right now, the conversation was introduced. It led to kind of I don't even know, a dumpster fire in some situations. Here comes the dev stream. People are trying to get their questions answered. They aren't answering the questions people have necessarily. Then we get another one. People are like, okay, maybe they'll answer this week. The questions aren't answered. So now it's a
They-
bigger critique.
They gave some answers, just not all the answers
Not
that people wanted.
All the
And so, yeah, that's
It seemed like they had a very specific time list of things they wanted to get through.
Mhm.
And they were like, we got to get through these. You know, we got a lot of people on they full didn't they pull out like 2 people and dump
Yeah.
like
They
they kept
rotated,
it
yeah,
felt like
they
they
did a
kept
rotation.
Yeah, they're
rotating a lot of
rotating.
people
They got a
out.
batting
Yeah.
order over here
Yeah.
on the stream. Okay.
Like
it
there
was
was
one of their
one time
longer
DMG
ones.
talked for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And I could kind of hear through his mic someone getting up and someone getting down real quick.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
all right, I'm here. It was like, okay.
They
And they
weren't
talked a
able
lot about
to
that power
lead
of
the
progression and all that
conversation.
stuff.
Yeah.
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 It was weird.
Well,
it's
and
so weird steps. I don't know.
yeah.
I
Let's
feel like a
let's-
longer stream would help. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that
100%. They
way.
were so short. Why were they so short?
a longer.
And I'm
a
not
longer-
saying that in the sense of like just having a little bit of time just to straight up just no talking outside, just answering some questions
Mhm.
from the chat. Obviously,
on
with some really high end moderating because we all know how
Yeah.
trash
Yeah, people can be.
both YouTube and Twitch
Yeah.
chat is on
Yeah,
those
yeah,
days.
yeah.
But there are some really good questions that could have been answered that would have solved a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Like I literally asked them on Twitter, I was like, you haven't told us about the raid. Can you at least tell us whether or not it's 24 or
Yeah.
48 hours? And they're like, yeah, it's 48. And I was like,
Yeah.
that could have been answered on the dev stream
Mhm.
in 10 seconds, you know. There's a lot of
Yeah.
questions people have
Yeah.
about a lot of stuff that is simply a yes or no, and that's like
Yeah.
10 seconds can be answered. But it's like,
Yeah, and there's some stuff that they talk about in some of these dev articles too. As somebody that wants the hard numbers, what are the scalars? You know, how all this stuff, right? When they were talking about these dev articles, where they would come out and say, okay, this is how we feel about a topic, and this is what we think the right thing to do for this topic is, and these are the patch notes that are going to make sure that happens. When they came out with the additive melee stacking, I know this is getting like into the nitty gritty a little bit, but that like was so huge, right? And it's a massive change to the sandbox. I think it's a good change. It helps with like player clarity and all kinds of stuff like that. This is something when it came to weapon stacking. We did an interview with the Chris Proctor like 2 years ago, and he said additive stacking, something definitely that we have thought about, that we were looking into, right? And so now my thought is, okay, well, they realized it with melee stacking, but they didn't really talk about what is the desire behind that? Is this going to come to grenades too? Is this going to come to weapon damage stacking? Is that going to shape other part of the sandboxes? And I wish that we got.
I've always wondered why they didn't do grenade stacking.
Motivations. Yeah, and so I think that sometimes it can be dense to get through a lot of those articles of here's the motivation, here's the patch notes, here's why we think this is the right decision. But sometimes that's what you gotta have when it comes to like major system shakeups. Well, and the raid, which is something I definitely want to talk about too, because I feel like
Yeah.
epic raid is a bit of a point of contention, right? What did they say? Didn't they talk about the epic raid a little bit too?
They said that they'd be adding new
specifically
encounters.
said it was going to be new, which really piqued my okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't remember the guy's name, but he specifically said that this raid was going to be a new raid, and that the raid we're getting on the 19th wasn't going to be what was the word? It wasn't going to be like, they weren't going to just do what they did in the past and make a prestige mode and take out a few mechanics and make it a normal. They were
It's not
making a
hard mode.
full raid. Yes, not hard mode. So whatever this epic raid is has me incredibly excited.
Yeah. It says,
and I know nothing about it, but just the fact that he specifies very specifically, like we're gonna have two raids, almost like two raids.
the note here says that the epic raid will be releasing with major update Ash and Iron after 3 months. The epic raid expands the raid and the story of it. So we may not even be fighting the big bad, like for like whatever reasons in that raid in the version that we get on the 19th. The epic raid brings new content. Nothing is being held back for the base raid.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what has me really excited, because I talked about last year. Salvation's Edge was it was a hard raid to still enjoy a year later. So I'm hopeful that this one can somehow solve that situation if we're having one a year.
Well, it used to be when they would design the raids, they would design it for, like, they would design the hard version first. Like this was back in Destiny 1. They would design the hard version first and then peel away
a few things.
Yeah, a few things for the regular version. Is what they're saying here that they didn't do that?
That's what I'm
They're
getting.
saying that they're
not like that back in
Yeah.
D1, right? I remember, what was it? Wrath of the Machine. I feel like there was a negative discourse around, the normal raid is just the stripped down version of the hard raid. Like, why can't we just start with the hard raid? And it's just ironic because now we have like explore mode dungeons, and people praise that so highly as a way to get into the dungeon. So I think that was just like a little bit of elitist combo back then. But
Prestige
from what you just
Leviathan
said,
did that too, though. If people,
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like people don't remember that, but like Prestige.
But that's
I
not what I'm
remember
hearing
that.
you just say about the most recent stream. Again, that was like not what I heard is the raid and a hard raid. I'm thinking there's the raid, and then there is new there's new story, there's new cutscenes, there's like new encounters, very
new encounters and all this.
Yeah, which I don't. If this is like the next iteration of a raid and raid lair, where you had like the Leviathan and the two supplemental raid lairs, right? I mean, that was a lot of gear that came from those, and it was kind of this long, ongoing story of Callus and his. Callus weird dude. He was a weird guy for sure.
Bullshit.
But he was doing some bullshit up there on the Leviathan for sure. But if
My
this
thought
is
is
the
that
new
same
version
thing,
of that, then
except in one raid. Yeah.
I mean, if there's a new encounter and we get new loot, just don't make it the same loot. Just give me like a few new guns or something, please. Please throw some new weapons in there, which I think that there will be. I don't know if that was officially confirmed, but I believe that there will be like iterations of the raid. I don't know if that will be armor too, or just the weapons, because that was something I know, Dan, you mentioned earlier on with Kepler, is that there was this like the base version of the armor set and its bonus that we know, and then there's this other only from like the third
From the
tier
Mythic.
world. You get this other armor set bonus. Okay, well, if there is a world in which the epic raid offers 2-3 new guns, and there's a new armor set bonus you can get from there, and it's got a new encounter. I don't know. Maybe only having one raid, so to say, is not that bad for the year.
Yeah. Going back into this, they talk about the portal, so there's going to be solo ops. Obviously, those are going to be like what people are going to be playing by themselves. There will be Fireteam ops, which is classic 3-player activities. So they said featuring some returning activities like Savathun Spire. We have Pinnacle ops. Will be filled with exotic missions featuring the whole difficulty customization system. Exotic missions will drop their respective weapons and will not be on rotation, so you can play them anytime you want. Ash and Iron will add more activities to those. With modifiers, we will see the difficulty being tuned heavily. that was a interesting portion of that stream because it definitely feels like they're trying to clear that up more and more of like, this is what you get when you do this. This is what you get when you do this. They're adding a video game into my video game is what I've been saying for years at this point. But so the first row of customization is 5 slots for challenge modifiers, changing combatant power, adding additional difficulty to it. So the second row is 4 slots for player stakes, including a time bonus, loadout restrictions. This is where I believe Sammy's HUD restriction would pop into.
I think so,
Yeah.
And then the third row is 4 slots for boon and event modifiers that benefit the player. So there are 3 slots for boon modifiers, such as Strand Surge, Healing Finisher, and 1 slot for event modifiers, so bonus loot drops if it's the daily focus activity. They also talk about a seasonal hub. So within the hub, there's a daily, weekly challenges, and then 1 reward is Vanguard Armory Arsenal tokens, granting bonus drops from Zavala with higher power and tier than even achieving the highest activity rank. And these refresh every week. Second page features the seasonal conquests that are Grandmaster replacements in the portal. Conquest modifier is shown to restrict gear to new loot only. From that one, it said Ash and Iron will add more GM conquests plus ultimate difficulty, which is tied to the Conqueror title. Which they're changing the Conqueror title to now.
They're like retiring it, but not
kind
retiring
of
it.
like
it's kind of
a
weird.
continuation.
Very weird.
Of it. Yeah.
Like I'd rather them retire it and just give this portal one a new name.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree.
Like Conquistador.
Totally new.
Yeah.
Totally different.
You have Conqueror and Conquistador. And then you just keep.
But I know they do that because if they retire my Conqueror, I probably wouldn't engage with the portal stuff as much. And I have to now to keep my like 14, 15 going.
Yeah.
Right.
Good job,
When they
Bungie.
talked about the pain point of you've been doing pinnacle activities for 3 hours and you need boots.
Yeah.
And you got 6 class items. All right. That's tough. That's a hard look right there. And the targeting gear slot drop that the portal can offer to get away from that is like
Really nice.
absolutely massive. Yeah, it's a huge win on that. And the video game in the video game, the what did we call it the other day? The MMOification of Destiny 2, if you will, right? Of being able to have that level of control over like the activity you engage with and the tier of gear that it's going to drop and all that is like very MMO like. I haven't played a ton of MMOs, maybe 3 or 4 like outside of Destiny, right? But it definitely feels very reminiscent of that in a way that I'm okay with. I like the accessibility nature of that and I like the targeted nature of that, even if some of these systems are getting a little complicated. I think net win on like the gear targeting and like understanding the gear that you're going to get to drop in the portal is
a lot less. It
awesome.
Seems like a lot fewer questions are about to enter into the chat of like, what do I need to do in order to hit the power cap?
Yeah.
My question has been ever since they announced it is, for me it feels like 5 of Swords, but like amplified. If you remember that whole system.
Whoa!
I know.
Yeah,
I know. But which isn't a bad thing. But my other question, when I remember watching them, is I hate to bring up the whole time spent to award.
Okay.
But as they increased all the things, they had like the little bonus increment thing. That never changed, which I found very interesting. They went through a lot of the stuff of like saying, let's add this debuff modifier. Let's add this one. Let's add this one. And it had an engram to the side that had a +1 that went up to a +2. That went from a tier 1 to a tier 2. Just in this example. But I found it very interesting that they started adding what I at least felt was some fairly decent penalties. And that's just that whole reward for how much stuff you had to do. They had like glass cannon, they had some other stuff on there, they had some bane modifiers on there, and they had like the one surge one, and it never changed. Now, obviously, they didn't put on like -60, they didn't put on -40 and stuff like that. But I was like, okay, what is going to be the mid max? Because what I find, at least for my personally, I'm going to do is within the first couple of days, probably after the raid, but I want to see what will end up being the best min max modifiers for my time.
You're trying to get that tier 5 gear and you're trying to clear it in 20 minutes, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was really interested in the extra drops because those are going to be really nice. But like, if I have to have a billion modifiers on there and I'm only getting one drop,
what's the use?
What's the use?
Exactly.
Right. And obviously they didn't put on the hardest stuff, but it was just something that struck out to me. And I know like they are removing the whole cap on pinnacles and the cap on gear, which I think is fantastic. But it just struck me that like they put on some fairly decent stuff. They took a long time to kill that brig, for example. You know, it was taking them a while to kill some stuff, and all that still grants you the normal drop and one other drop. So, in the realm of maybe a try hard or like a sweat, sure, there might be ways where you can like get a tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 in a decent amount of time, but I wonder how much of the community is going to engage with it. And I don't know if anyone else noticed that, but I just found it very interesting, this system that's going to have a lot of our time having to engage with the portal with its modifier system. And if you want to go for very specific drops, I need boots, or I need this, or I need that, or I need that 250 light level boots or whatever. But you got to do all these modifier things. And doing all that, you might have to take an hour to complete something. And what if you fail?
Right.
So I wanted to point that out because I found it very interesting that they did put on all these modifiers and it never changed the loot that you were going to get. You could have had no modifiers on and you would have still got the same drop, basically, from what I saw.
I feel like they're going to end up in this world where we get iterations on weapons sandbox all the time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like every 3 months. I feel like something we're going to start seeing a lot is the modifier sandbox tweaking. Okay, well, glass cannon used to be a 0.25 modifier. Now it's 0.4 because it's actually harder than we had valued it to be. And that stuff is going to take a long time to like equate, or what am I trying to say? Solve out like what the optimal score is to get tier 5 and like what is contributing too much to hitting tier 5 and what is not contributing enough is probably going to take some trial and error. And to your point, Epic Dan, talking about I don't want to feel like my time is wasted, but if you allow people to min-max it too much and you're just getting tier 5 drops in like 20 minutes, where's the challenge?
It's a tough balancing act.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to take like most of this next year of Destiny before they are like really hone in every modifier has got like it's what is a truly appropriate impact on the score,
Yeah. I only mention it because like we have, when is Ash of Iron? September?
That's in September, yeah.
I don't know, it's like 2 or 3
Most
months.
is going to have to deal with this system in its infancy for a few months. Yep. I don't know if we're going to get like a mid-season patch or something. That's all.
Well, that's the
thing about trying new things,
is, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
that's why. Yeah, I think that is what Ash and Iron is.
That's what they're trying to make it so that you know consistently when they're going to be updating the sandbox.
Yeah.
So
that's tough if you have that situation for 3 months. It's going to be a tough one. I don't know. Got to wait and see.
Yeah.
From there, I mean, they also talk about Guardian ranks here. So Guardian ranks are going to be like refocused completely. You're going to start at rank 2 again, which I saw some conversation about like asking if that number was still tied to the amount of loadouts that you had. It seems like they're going to be making it a little bit easier and not tying it to like activity. Like it says won't require dungeons, solo clears, commendations. For Guardian ranks now.
You think they're going to require a bunch of portal stuff now?
Probably. Like it says, objectives will be playing activities using modifiers, playing all the conquests, gaining power, getting all different types of rewards. And that the first 5 ranks will be an on-ramp to the game. Everyone will be dropped back to rank 2. Starting in Ash and Iron, and every season following will drop you back down to rank 6, like before.
Which is pretty much what we have right now, isn't it?
Wait, it drops you back down to rank 6?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
As of right now, it doesn't drop you. It drops you back down. Like it drops you down
7.
1.
It drops you to 7.
No, I've never dropped down past 10.
Give me a sec.
Well, you
Nah,
might
I'm
have
at 7, my guy.
you might have
You
done
keep doing
activities.
stuff that, yeah,
like,
exactly. You keep
passively
grinding
doing
that one done.
activities, helping people out in this community. How dare you?
Wait,
Be
I didn't
Guardian
know it
rank
goes
10
all
before
the way back
everybody
down to
else.
6.
Yeah.
I
No,
didn't
well,
know
it's
that.
7. It's 7. As somebody who
7.
hasn't engaged with like Guardian ranks in like a few seasons now, it's 7. If you've done like up to the 11, I think once at least, it drops you down to 7. But yes, that is a thing. Dad has learned something today.
I did not know that.
I don't know. It's very funny though.
Because I've never seen myself say anything but 11 or 10. Unless you're
I think it's
talking
because-
about the thing where, like, there is a time at a new season, I'll have all these things auto builded or whatever, and I just click them
I'm
all.
saying. Because, like, you play so much with the community, and you do so much high-end content, and you already have some of those things as goals for you, like soloing dungeons, that you probably accidentally, like, just trip into being level 10.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, shout out to Pigeon for those GM Guild guides. He always puts out. You know, I don't know what to do without him, frankly. Yeah.
Don't say that. You're gonna give him an ego bigger than he already has.
But yeah,
I'm sorry, I was unaware that was a thing. My bad.
No, but like it ends up being not that big of a deal, quote unquote, because of that. I mean, it drops you down 1 lower than it used to, as far as I know.
And other than other than the slots, like other than the loadout slots,
do loadouts, I'm fine. Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Like, what does your Guardian rank really like establish?
Nothing. Yeah, exactly.
Your ego, like skill level. Come on, dude, get good.
Damn.
Like, what do you, I mean, I feel like
I'm telling you right now. Like,
first.
I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be that. But like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, I hear you.
A couple years on, like,
unfortunately,
what is it?
Yeah,
I thought it was a cool system at first, but like you said, the having to do kind of remedial stuff in the game kind of just didn't really translate as it should. Like if I was a strictly PvP player, you know, I could never hit max rank just because none of the stuff in there requires me to, like, you know, carry 10 people to the lighthouse or, you know, get 100 flawlesses or something. You know, it's just, I don't know how they make it for not every kind of player, but like for at least sections of the community to all hit it. But being there, kind of like we have those few people in the community who are Gambit sweats, which you know, we'll talk about that later. Obviously,
they still exist. They're still there.
There's no way a Gambit sweat can hit max rank, or you know.
Yeah,
man.
They did at least talk about that a little bit with PvP power, right? If you can actually go all
at
the
least
way
that,
up on PvP,
great. And with that, I want to apologize to friend Mirabella when I was on shortly after they announced the Guardian ranks thing. I was on the podcast, the DCP. I was on DCP.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I think it'll be cool. Like it'll be nice because then you can tell when everybody. So I want to apologize to friend Mirabella because you were absolutely correct. But, you were absolutely correct in hating them. I didn't see it. Now I see it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, friend. Please take me back. So we have after that article, like, so we received a few other informations about like about the Banes and about some of the exotics that will be featured. The day afterward, we received the Dev Insights weapons and gear tiering article. This is one that I'm going to admit I didn't read through this.
I did. It wasn't.
Was it information that we that we knew beforehand? Was it just
a majority of it was?
Yeah.
I don't want to say regurgitated, but it definitely was like, if you didn't see the dev stream, here's a majority of it with a few more intricacies.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing is that they're just showing off like, hey, here's what a tier 1 looks like all the way up to tier 5. Like, this is what you're getting. And like that it looks cool. I want to have it in my hand. I think that's when I'll be able to tell.
Yeah, you know what they did not talk about that in that blog post very specifically is weapon crafting.
Right.
On purpose.
Yeah, I was like, that was for sure. That's on purpose right there, right? And if I am getting multiple gear drops, right, when you look at these higher weapon tiers, you're seeing multiple traits or multiple enhanced traits. If you go all the way up to tier 5, you're getting 3 sets of traits in that final column. So this need to have weapon crafting filling in that gap of a stopgap for horrible RNG, and we go way back into like the thought of why weapon crafting came in and all that, but I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem if you're giving people the opportunity to get weapons with multiple sets of perks relatively frequently. They got a clear acquisition path to them. I don't think the lack of crafting is going to be so bad, but they've already been getting away from it, and I think that hammer is going to drop kind of subtly. And
are you calling a silent removal? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't want to say removal, but I definitely think that it's just going to, kind of silent retiring, right? It's just going to be showing up less and less, and they're just not going to say a ton about it. And they're just going to give you all this new loot and all these new ways to go get this loot, and
encouraging you to play with that new stuff.
Yeah.
And
they might keep it for old raids. If they bring back an old raid or like adding it to like,
I think they're silently putting it on the shelf. I agree with Kabir. It's just
even like if they bring back an older raid, they're not gonna do it just for the raids.
No.
I mean, if I can get a tier 5 weapon,
yeah, I could see them like
so
limiting.
5 weapons are everywhere.
I could see them limiting crafting options to like tier 2.
I don't even see them updating it at all, really,
because of the enhanced perks. Because of the enhanced perks built in there.
Yeah,
they'll keep it for exotics.
I don't know.
For exotics,
you mean like borrow dyad kind of a thing?
Yeah, and like Slayer Fangs and all of these,
whatever.
Right?
Yeah,
all of these.
Yeah, but they are just giving that out as Zur now. So like, who's to say with Edge of Fate they're just going to add the exotics to Vanguard strikes just to drop?
Yeah,
but what about a catalyst, right? You apply whatever you want on it, quote unquote.
Yeah, but like, say like the catalyst drops and you just, to make it really, really simple, it's just one catalyst that lets you have all the stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone's going to complain. But my, PvE try hard. It's like it's older activity. Sign the game. Yeah, it's like
So I got a good argument for this as someone who is needs to be vault space conscious because of decisions that I have made about my vault. I was doing this is Master Vaulted Glass like 2 weeks ago, and I got a sniper to drop and a machine gun to drop, and they had enough perks on them in the columns that I deleted the crafted one and the other corrected measure that I had, and then same thing for Praetus, right? I deleted 3 copies of a sniper because I got a triple perks one that resolved every need that I had, and so now I got from 3 vault spaces to 1 for that specific piece of gear. And I think as long as tier 5 offers that kind of thing, well, I mean, and I could pick my what was it, barrel and mag, right, on ray guns. They would you customize just a little bit. I think that kind of crafting, it was like probably much easier to make that work with like the higher tier stuff. And it like actually provided a higher value incentive for me to delete these other 3 items out of my vault, enhance that one Praetus Revenge, and just keep that.
100% I agree with that though. 100%.
It just seems so I don't want to say obvious, but I've always felt that I would rather participate in content to earn all this stuff than sit at a vendor. Like, I just always would prefer that type of playing of this game.
Well,
so anything that allows me to spend.
Well, you want to play the game?
Yeah, crazy, right?
Here's the thing, Epic Dan. They added a video game into your video game, and now you video game
Yeah,
more.
exactly.
Hey, let's go.
But like, I don't mind grinding, but like this ties back to last week. I don't mind grinding. Please make it fun. For the love of God, and rewarding. Please. Those are the two things.
I think
I want to grind.
I feel like
Make
the
it
extra
fun.
columns
Make it
and extra
rewarding.
perks helps that a lot.
Yeah.
Because if I can
yeah,
get weapons
still.
with a lot of perks, it hopefully will allow me to get whatever I'm seeking significantly easier.
Mm-hmm.
But my question then becomes, is it going to be like when you try to roll at, like, let's say Zavala to try to get your double three perks, but then it's a chance even though you re-ranked your your thing 5 times?
Oh, I mean, the problem with that has always been, I don't think Zavala rerolling is an issue. The issue with those have always been each column has like 85 perks.
Also
That's always been the problem. Whereas Vaulted Glass was a lot more manageable because each column had like maybe 6. So it's easier when you have 3 per column to get what you're looking for in a more tolerable time. Zavala in like Gambit and Crucible was always bad because you had so many perks you had to funnel through on both columns, and that's a lot of RNG to fight.
But I still find frustrating that after putting in all that effort of like re-ranking 5 times or whatever it is, to not always have, like, it's a chance of having double 3 perks on the, or double 3 perks on the weapon. That to me always felt bad.
Well, tier 4 and 5 should be like guarantees, right?
Yeah, the fact that it's guaranteed
but that's the
now
thing,
rather
right?
than
If you
chance.
get tier 4 to tier 5, is it always going to be?
I would imagine it's guaranteed. If they're doing the same system like they did with Vaulted Glass, it would be a guarantee. Yeah.
Okay, then that's fine. Then at that point, okay. Still make it fun, but okay.
Yeah. Then moving from this, let's talk. we have a huge TWID. This TWID was immense. One of the largest ones that I've seen in quite some time. So shall we crack into it with weapon tuning for Edge of Fate?
Sure.
All right. Yeah. So we have, they said, hello again from the Destiny 2 sandbox team. Like most other areas of the game, weapons have gotten many changes in Edge of Fate. So let's get right into it. Before that, reminder that yesterday they published the dev insight, blah, blah, blah. So, like weapon archetypes, we have machine guns receiving a new staged reload. With staged reload places checkpoints in the reload animation. When a player cancels a reload animation and starts again, it will resume from the latest checkpoint. That seems crazy.
I want to see that out.
Yeah.
Can we get a little clip in action?
Yeah, I was really hoping they would give us a clip. Yeah.
Because it takes a while. Like we've been running nothing but machine guns as primary for the past like however many years, months, days, and
that's so true.
Yeah, I mean that's what they are.
They're primaries,
yeah. So like knowing that I don't have to go through that entire animation every time, like that's huge. Glaives,
I never actually thought about that.
Yeah. Which part?
Like, just treating them like primaries.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I guess it's because maybe all I do is use bows.
Oh, use bows.
Use bows.
That's fair. You know,
never mind. Fair. It makes more sense now.
I think it got better when they added more ammo, because there was a time heavies machine guns didn't have a plethora of ammo, but ever since they gave it the ammo buff, it just feels like I have infinite ammo. And to be surprised, I was really expecting a nerf in one or two places, and instead they're giving us a pseudo buff with stage reloads.
Yeah. Oh, something else. This is kind of tangential. Something else that I don't know if I said this last week, but I've been thinking about it over like past couple weeks. Is like I cannot wait to see the special and the heavy gauge on the screen now, to know exactly when I'm going to be receiving those things.
Yes.
Because like we've gone through a couple of runs where it's just like you're farming for those and you're
Just
not
feel like it's never coming out.
It's never coming and it's never coming and you're just like, all right, fine. Then I guess we could just go. And
so I guess
that'll be such a good
Kabir could answer this for us because I feel like you would have at least the knowledge.
Yeah, what's
a
up?
few years ago, they explained or someone came out with internal testing, and this is what I've always used to kind of know in my content when I'm about to receive a special or heavy. There was can't remember who posted it, but there was a bracket or parameter of you kill X amount of enemies, and after X amount of enemies are killed, this will drop a special and this will drop a heavy, whether it be red bars, yellow bars, so on and so forth. Do you think these meters are just going to be a one-to-one, just instant bring into the game? Or is there any expectation that they're going to also retune the way heavy and special is being internally counted in the game to drop first?
Okay,
because when I saw it, I just instantly thought of like okay, well, every 11 red bars, I'm getting a special drop or something.
Yeah. What were you saying, Sammy?
Oh, I really hope it's that second one that they retune it.
Yes, and I man, I can
So
talk about that for like
bad.
way long, but I'm gonna try to keep this like as shortish, you know. So the system that you were talking about is true, but it wasn't predictable enough because it was never exposed to the players, and there are also multiple factors that would play into this. Using an exotic weapon, using an exotic primary weapon. This is why whenever you would see, I remember. First trying to get into low man raids and exotic primaries like Sunshot would be super popular. Number one, because they're strong. And number two, because they could guarantee faster heavy ammo production without needing to dedicate a player within that limited fire team in your trio raid or whatever just to generating ammo. And it still is frustrating because it's less predictable. So you'd have to just farm out all the thrall with your Sunshot in
But I thought
fall and hope
the explosions would count, right?
Yeah, because it counts as weapon damage, right? So it's like an incandescent thing. It counts as a weapon kill, but this is also why, man, there is so much there, and I don't think it was consistent at all because there was all these little multiplier factors to it. Was it an exotic weapon? Was it a primary weapon? What kind of target did you kill? And that was just really tough. And I know that there's way more going than that into the new system for several reasons, but chief among them is the weapon generation stat on your weapons. I don't know if you guys keyed in on this, but now we have a whole stat on weapons that is dedicated just to this, and there are even effects that can increase your ammo generation stat on a weapon for a brief period of time, like what is the exotic? There is an exotic that is in this TWID that includes this specifically, the Navigator. That's trace rifle, right? When you have woven mail up, you increase your ammo generation stat. And so now it's like direct, communication to the player of this is how much this is going to contribute to the bar. They tell you, I mean, you can just see the bar itself. You can see the progress that's going to come out of killing these different enemies. Now, I don't think this has been completed yet, but like rest assured that this is going to be completely reverse engineered out of the game by people in the Destiny science community to tell you exactly what percentage it is that a red bar or a yellow bar or major or champion is going to give you based on what kind of weapon. Was it a heavy, exotic, primary, whatever? But yeah, I know that there's way more going into that. And this is also something, ammo bar is totally new, but it's not actually totally new. This is something that Bungie has been working on in Crucible a little bit for a while. We saw ammo bars surface up in Crucible a while ago, and I think this is the iteration development of that. Shout out Mercules, old original Massive Breakdowns host, right? I'm pretty sure that he's been working on this for a long time, and that there's much more to it with the weapons generation stat, with the type of weapon that you're using, and also this opens up a new lever for them if they feel like a weapon is potentially going to be too strong or feeding into other loops too frequently. Like knock down that ammo generation stat by 10 points, right? Because now we got a new lever here to like balance weapon archetypes against each other in a much more meta way that they did not have before.
I didn't think about that last one. That is incredibly interesting. Yeah. Because I only mentioned it because this, at least from my point of view, this special and heavy inclusion is going to be incredibly huge for day one raids. Because we all have seen in a raid, okay, well, I got to do X, Y, Z because we really need to have heavy for this final stand or whatever. And certain weapons like Navigator instantly like, okay, I'm making bring Navigator
right
for the day one raid simply because of its woven melee effect. And like other primary exotics always bring simply to generate heavy faster for me and my team. So but I didn't think about that last one. That's going to be really interesting to balance.
But you're also going to still have bypasses like Cenotaph too, and like the Aeon.
Yeah,
like to help.
And I think there are still issues with the general ammo sandbox. You got Xeno Warlocks, you got people running Aeons with special finisher, and trying to generate ammo for their teammates or whatever the case may be. And so there'll probably still be some of that. And like your real day one raid type of environments, you're gonna have a Xeno guy or like a Aeons guy generating ammo. But I think it even just exposing it to people and letting them understand like what's going on versus the just I read this post about this dude on Nessus that said that I gotta get 17 kills with the exotic primary before I get the drop. And like that's not it, yeah. Let's see.
Reconstruction. So they said that Reconstruction was underperforming on non-rocket launcher weapons since the nerf that increased the time it needs to start filling a weapon's mag. So they're greatly increasing the amount of ammo transferred on each activation from 10% to 25% of the ammo transferred. We have Paracausal Affinity. They added a visible timer to the buff. With kinetic tremors, they added a whole slew of changes here. They decreased the shots to activate on certain weapons and subframes. High impact auto rifles require 9 hits, down from 12. Aggressive and high impact scout rifles require 5 hits, down from 6. Hand cannon subfamilies have received specific tuning. They didn't say exactly what that was. Aggressive hand cannons require 4 hits, down from 6, and adaptive hand cannons require 5 hits, down from 6. And precision are unchanged and still require 6 shots to activate. That seems like that's going to make that more valuable.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things. Well, first of all, I'll say shout out to Noah Lee, aka Mr. Great himself from Into the Light Streams, because he came out and was talking about working on these changes himself, and also commented on the fact that these are before you enhance the trait, which will always take 1 shot down. And there's a couple interesting things they point out to, like aggressive scout rifles and aggressive hand cannons. There are no aggressive scout rifles and hand cannons in the game that have kinetic tremors right now. So maybe maybe it's coming in the future. There's also an interesting note here on hand cannons that have such a good scaler on kinetic tremors, which is not being touched. So your adaptive hand cannons are going to be 5 shots or 4 when you enhance them, and hand cannons have one of the best scalers for dealing with major and elite enemies. So kinetic tremors inherits that, right? And you could now trigger that in 4 shots with like your Midnight Coup or Fatebringer, and I think that is going to be like really powerful, and especially when you combo that with something like One for All. And kinetic tremors can not only trigger One for All because it counts as weapon damage, but kinetic tremors also inherits damage from other traits like One for All, Frenzy, whatever it may be. So the adaptive hand cannon play with kinetic tremors could be kind of hot.
Yeah.
1-2 punch now works with all melee abilities. Perk active time increased from 1.22 seconds to 3 seconds. Attrition orbs, currently too powerful in area denial combat or grenade launchers, somewhat underwhelming in other weapon types. So they increased the perk progress by 20% across the board, reduced perk progress by 80% with area denial grenade launchers, and increased perk progress by an additional 30% on swords. Holy cow, dude. So we also see like Eager Edge and Valiant Charge. So while active melee search angle is now reduced by 50% at the start of a lunge range, by 88% at edge of lunge range. I don't use Eager Edge to travel around, so like this movement tech stuff is done.
No?
Yeah, I don't know. I use my feet. That's what I was
kinda
given.
similar to Dan.
I'm
never
so
learned
eager,
to
man.
do
I'm
it.
always edging,
Oh my god.
Edging into the edge.
edging into the edge.
Yeah. It's Cryo Phoenix in chat. Feet? I'll show them. That requires the player to look more at their target to strike it, improving specific target acquisition in PvE and require more direct look in PvP. Chain reaction has a slew of changes here. Threadlings created by weapon perks will no longer activate detonation from chain reaction. Chain reaction, Dragonfly, and Firefly no longer use a weapon archetype scaling against combatants and instead use the new perk damage scaling that is more normalized between different weapon types. So Kabir, so to me that feels like foreign language to me for whatever reason. Do you mind going into that a little bit?
Yeah, so every weapons have like base damage, right? And then they have archetype scaling that talks about how much damage they deal against different types of enemies. So hand cannons are really good against majors, like I was talking about just a second ago, which is why if you look down at the bottom of this list here, you'd see hand cannons deal 20% less Dragonfly and Firefly damage. That's because they inherently had a scalar when it comes to damage against those that type of combatant, right? But some other weapons would not, because of just the way that they had set up these scalars. So maybe an auto rifle had a 1.3x versus a hand cannon had a 1.7. So it is very interesting when weapons would or would not inherit these multipliers. A change that you guys probably remember from a long time ago was Volt Shot. Volt Shot used to inherit its weapon damage scalar property, which is why when we had a fusion rifle like on the Amona, right, that would inherit its weapon damage scaling on a fusion rifle, that jolt energy would do way more damage than it would from an SMG, right? Because it doesn't have as high of a scale. Or maybe SMGs against miners only had a 1.3, but fusions have a 2.4 because they're a special weapon. I'm starting to butcher this a little bit, and I'll link one of Mossy's damage scalings in the chat here in just a second. But the moral of the story is that weapons have these like hidden inherent scalars that affect the kind of damage they do to different kinds of enemies, and this is what keeps some weapons from being super effective against other types of enemies that you may expect them to be. So like scout rifles, for example, are really easy to take out damage on lower tier enemies, but when it comes to elite enemies, their scalar kind of falls off, right? So you can feel this a little bit when you're playing through the game, but it's always been kind of under the hood. And I don't know, perspective here is, okay, they did this with Volt Shot a long time ago. Now they're coming back and they're saying they're going to do this again with Chain Reaction, Dragonfly, Firefly, and the way that this interacts, and it's making it more predictable for somebody that's playing the game of this is how much damage is going to deal based on a new lever that they have that is not directly tied into like weapon damage scaling, which again is this kind of like under the hood thing that's affecting how much damage a weapon is doing to a specific type of enemy. Another really common version of this is Wardcliff Coil, right? Wardcliff Coil is never good against bosses until it weirdly is insanely good against them, right? It's because it has damage scaling against bosses that's really bad until you run it against a boss that isn't actually coded in the game as a boss. And
It's
then
like a
that
vehicle or something.
Bingo. Wardcliff pops off, right? And I think that this is something that people for a long time thought wasn't understandable or solvable, but shout out Mossy Max, right? Like that man is on the case and he will solve what's going on there. My other theory here is that stuff like kinetic trimmers, like we were just talking about, where right now hand cannons have it really good. Sniper rifles are incredibly strong when it comes to scalars for weapon damage traits. That's why your rapid fire sniper rifles with kinetic trimmers are so good. That may also be evened out at some point and brought in with another lever here. So I think this is just a lot about normalizing what your like expectation should be when getting a kill with a weapon and trying to make sure that that is consistent across the board in the game, rather than I got this explosion and it did a massive amount of damage to this red bar, and then I got the same explosion and it didn't even touch a 10% of that elite's health bar. And that creates kind of like an odd interaction for the player if you are not going out there and reading all these whatever advanced sandbox materials, right? Yeah, so that's probably about as succinct as I can say that.
Okay.
But it's Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of under the hood combatant stuff and weapon balancing stuff that they've been using for a long time. And I'm kind of happy to see some of it go away, even if like the Volt Shot stuff, I'm bummed that weapons don't inherit Volt Shot. But how do you explain to a new player of the game that Volt Shot is actually way better, even though it's the same exact trait on this fusion rifle than it is on this submachine gun, even though it's the same thing? And that, again, is like getting away from this what I don't think is great communication or feedback like to the player that is playing the game. And this kind of gets away from that a little bit.
Thank you for making that so succinct. Because
I also am probably going to have people tell me that I totally butchered that explanation by the end of the night tonight, but
Well, I understand what you said, so I understood something.
We're good.
What are you going to do? It's a podcast. It's only going to live forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So champion interaction changes. In Season 20, they added the ability for subclass verbs, such as ignition, jolt, suppression, to stun champs, and have since added these verbs to weapon traits and various exotic weapons through rebalances. They quickly realized that these weapons had issues when paired with the anti-champion effects from sources like the artifact or radiant. To prevent erratic behavior, they've barred certain exotics from gaining external anti-champion capabilities. It's become clear that to the player which exotic perks are excluded, so they decided to address the issue formally. They've now made certain exotic weapons, most of which applied a subclass verb through gameplay, intrinsically anti-champ, and will adhere to the following soft rule from now on. So weapons that intrinsically have anti-champion symbols in the weapon tray cannot receive anti-champion capabilities from the artifact or radiant-like effects. Otherwise, they can receive external anti-champion capabilities and be able to continue their subclass verb anti-champ capabilities. That seems good. That just seems like a pretty standard change.
Wait, question for that though.
Mm-hmm.
So volatile rounds is anti-barrier. Leviathan's breath, of course it's Leviathan's breath, is unstop.
Mm-hmm.
Are they changing it?
So you would no longer get the anti-barrier, is my understanding.
It currently doesn't get anti-barrier.
No.
Okay.
Exotics only get the intrinsic one.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I think that this is just expanding that principle out way further to more stuff.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the opposite way. Okay.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with like the volatile. It's not changing to whatever the verb is. It's whatever it currently is.
Yes. Whatever it shows in the tray is what its action is going to be.
I have plans with unstop. They better not take it away from me.
Well, as long as you're not using stasis, which, kind of is getting pulled away from unstop, you should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, stasis.
Yeah. And
Or stasis.
Subsistence Sasquatch in chat says intrinsic unstop for Levy. It has a volatile explosion, not volatile rounds. So.
Oh, true. Okay. Yeah. Oh, because it's volatile rounds. That's the anti-barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
Shows how much I know.
Yeah. And this is also like a weird interaction too, where
Champions.
I don't know. This is maybe a season or two ago. Wicked Implement didn't have technically any intrinsic anti-champion capabilities on the trait, right? It did not say overload, even though it could, with basically no activation, stun an overload champion just landing a few shots. And it couldn't also inherit anti-barrier because they thought of the overload nature of it. And the same thing with Polaris Lance, where Polaris Lance was like a master key for all champ types like 3 or 4 seasons ago. And so I think this is getting at preventing that, and then also making that more clear of just, okay, Wicked Implement, you can generate slow on command. Like, you are just an overload intrinsic weapon now, and we're not going to make some weird exception behind the scene for you.
I don't think I think they're trying to pull the players away from having the master key, like you said, because we've had a lot of weapons, legendary and exotic, that could, with the artifact and sometimes without the artifact, deal with most, if not all, champions in the activity. And I don't think they want us to keep having that ability.
They kind of want you to pick a lane.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with, but I also I was just talking to Court about this earlier today. It's kind of interesting to see how, yeah, champs are still in the game, and we still see champs all the time, but Banes, Banes are like the hotness, right? Banes are like what is drawing me into a new activity, and seeing all these new types of Banes is getting me really excited. So I'm not super worried about them limiting like champ counter triple dip interactions. It seems fair, right? Yeah, and killing the Master Key, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Banes seem to have changed the ingredients of the soup quite a bit to make them a little bit more enjoyable.
Well, it makes it to where you don't have to bring certain tools anymore.
Exactly.
Which I personally like.
Outside of new stuff with Edge of Fate. Like,
Banes, I mean, like, I don't need a specific champion thing, for example. That's all I meant.
Yeah,
like, I can bring whatever I want and deal with that Bane versus I gotta have this unstop thing, or I gotta have Radiant or some way to deal with this anti-barrier.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the Bane could still change the way maybe you proceed in an encounter. Okay, so I'm gonna just real quick shout out Zealot's Bane in Ekthar encounter, right? That totally changes the next 15 seconds or whatever about how I'm going to handle the scenario when these specific group of enemies comes out. I immediately, a new thought level is engaged, right? And I'm having to think about the pattern in which I'm killing these enemies. So I'm so on board for that, because of the way it changes your behavior and your interaction with the game without changing your loadout mandatory.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Sorry, just adding something to our thing here. For the changes to exotics, so they list like Vigilance Wing, Hierarchy of Needs, Dead Man's Tale, Duality, the Navigator. We already touched on Navigator a little bit there. Wicked Implement, Heart Shadow, Worldline Zero, Devil's Ruin, Tommy's Matchbook. I'm seeing a lot of weapons that I haven't personally used in a while, and I also don't see a lot of people using quite a bit.
Are you gonna use them after?
I actually, Heart Shadow is probably the one that I use the most out of all of those.
Really?
Yeah. Like I like going invisible, like regardless of what class I'm on. So
yeah, that's true.
Like that's a very easy way to get to it and do it. And it also applies like a debuff. So that's been something that I've used for solo content in the past too.
I think I liked it more. I think I used Heart Shadow more before we had so many ways to go in and weaken. I feel like that's kind of been its utility is. I feel like it could use a buff. That's all.
Yeah, it's been
something
shelved
to make it fall more in line with like all the other ways we can go invis.
Yeah, I feel like DMT with that 17% buff is going to be pretty strong. Aggressive scouts are already
and the reload too.
Yeah, 5 shots in a single reload. You can put Vorpal weapon if you want to craft that thing. Scout is anti-barrier next season, so it's I feel like there's plenty there, and I'm getting really excited about reading the description of the Hierarchy of Needs buffs, even though I totally want to see it in person.
I gotta see it.
Yeah, but I'm not. This is not affecting my way of life as a player. But it's affecting potentially somebody's way of life as a player. So, I mean, Queen of Bows, what's the take?
I could see it being decent for Levy's breath. That's my only thinking. Because, like, if you think about it, you have, like, the bow stuff, right? You have the Leviathan's breath, which is already a pretty solid bow by itself.
Sure.
If we have Hierarchy of Needs, which is going to amplify Leviathan's breath, you could have a Galahorn scenario with Levy's breath. But I need to see the numbers in game first before I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep using rockets.
So, Sammy, you're not going to be adopting a Hierarchy of Needs anytime soon?
I'm going to make other people in my fire team use it.
We only need one person with it, so.
I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy. The only thing that I like is that it's finally bringing a solar bow to the forefront, that people will actually use it, because we don't have very good exotic solar bows. So the fact that they are changing it and buffing it.
Yeah, Tiku's would like a word.
Tiku's isn't, sorry, I shouldn't say very good. Tiku's isn't as popular as
no.
Other people would use other elements. I should say it that way.
I've only seen Tiku's in solo GMs.
Oh, I
Otherwise, people
use
use like
all the time.
Wishender, Lay Monarch. They'll use
well, and especially Limonarch with like
Yeah.
this season's artifact.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
it's really good.
Trinity Ghoul.
Yeah.
So solar bows really haven't had a place as much. They've become kind of niche, we should say.
Yeah, no,
So
that's true.
I am
will agree.
glad that people will be using a solar bow, and I'm hoping that that will give more opportunity to play with different builds when I'm doing an all bow. But let's be honest, I'll still be on void. What I do not like about this is that I am confident it will change the sandbox for bows.
Mhm.
I am confident it will, because people are going to start using it. They're going to shoot Levy's Breath through it. It's going to be OP as hell. It's going to be OP as fuck. It's going to be super intense. And then they're going to be like, okay, well, let's go ahead and try and balance this. We're not going to change hierarchy of needs. We want to keep that perk there, that all bows will work. So let's go ahead and change how Leviathan's Breath works with it. So
Yeah,
let's
they
go
might do
ahead
that.
and change the base Leviathan's Breath damage and how that bow works to accommodate for how it works with another bow. So they are going to then try and balance bows. Well, if you change Leviathan's Breath, you're going to probably go ahead and change how it is affecting the brand new crossbow, because that's another heavy bow in the same archetype. That then is going to start going, how are we going to go ahead and balance that with other bows? Because regular exotic bows, like Hierarchy of Needs, they are borderline special. Let's be completely honest. They are borderline special. They do not act the same as a legendary bow. They are, in general, just very, very powerful comparatively. So they're going to start looking at other bows because of this whole interaction with Hierarchy of Needs. And then it just trickles down because, of course, we're touching exotic bows. We're going to go ahead and affect the entire archetype. Balancing that. So then it's going to come down to, let's go ahead and balance legendary bows. And I mean this in a respectful way, but the majority of time when Bungie goes to try and balance an archetype, they do a terrible job with it. Respectfully, then we get into multiple mid-season updates, sandbox changes, where they're trying something. And that'll just, when you have legendary primary bows, when you have exotic primary bows that are borderline special, when you have a legendary crossbow, which isn't the same thing as a bow, and then you have an exotic bow that works with one of those exotic primary bows, and that interaction, then, I mean, what level do you stop?
So the
At
biggest
what
fear is they
point
don't
do you
balance
stop?
hierarchy of needs. They balance bows around the fact that they can now interact with hierarchy.
That players are going
Yes.
to use hierarchy needs. Yeah.
They're going to
Yeah.
use Hierarchy of Needs, and then they are going to use other bows as utility, because that's how Hierarchy of Needs works. So they're not going to change Hierarchy of Needs, because say they change Hierarchy of Needs, then Leviathan's Breath goes through it, right? You need to make sure when you change that, that is not going to change how primary or legendary primary bows work through it, because that could just mess up all of them. So you're going to change how the specific bow will work. So you've got, like I said, you've got the primary, and now we have 3 different legendary primaries. So we have another one that is coming into the sandbox. We've got the longbow that then we have to go ahead, and they're experimenting with probably right now, the longbow mixed with that against the lightweight, mixed against the precision frame. And right now, not a lot of people use precision frame. A lot of them use lightweight because there's not as big of a difference when it actually comes to damage output. So how do we make it so that people want to use precision frame? And there's not a lot of legendary precision frames that are not completely power crept by the lightweights that have recently come out, such as Under Your Skin and the new Void Void seasonal bow. And then we have this new longbow coming out. Well, how is that going to play against it? Because it's going to be a longer draw time, harder hit. So then is precision going to be right in the middle of that? How are we going to make it so where precision stands apart enough from lightweight to then stand apart enough from this longbow? I just don't know how it's going to work. And I think that hierarchy of needs is going to affect all of that in a negative way.
You know, if we look back on like
there we
Gallahorn
go.
Rocket Meta Glory days, how did Bungie eventually solve out Rocket Meta from Gallahorn just dominating everything?
They moved back then when it first came out, the big damage increase came from Pack Hunter. So what they did was they moved like 90% of the damage increase to the actual rocket instead of having a massive increase in damage from the Pack Hunter. So there was a time when I remember using it a whole lot. And then when they made that change, it was like, well, you're better off just having another person shoot a rocket and have no Pack Hunter. Because your damage as a team and as a player would go up dramatically. And then they did another pass over where it wasn't worth it in 3s, and it was only worth it in 5s, or in 6s technically, where if you have enough people using, well, obviously everyone's using rocket, but the only time now currently is worth using rockets 99% of the time is if you're in 6s. 3s, you're better off having 3 people just shoot the normal rockets because Pack Hunter doesn't increase your damage enough.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see how ideal scenario is that they use this whole Gallahorn dominating the meta via rockets as a guide for, hierarchy of needs buff comes out. Leviathan's Breath, which is already good, and I feel is slept on a bit. If you look at like pure damage number outputs,
it's good.
It's been good, yeah, and it's kind of always in this like precipice, right, of being meta. If this goes down the path that Sammy's talking about and it absolutely cranks, and now everybody's using bows, but at what cost? Because it's going to drive the meta, it's going to drive up the meta, and eventually it's going to be too strong, and the fear is that it's going to get knocked down.
What about Ergo Sum? Because we had a very similar situation with Ergo Sum, because Ergo Sum affected swords the same way with Pack Hunter. I don't know.
The only thing they nerfed on that was Relentless Strikes, because the wolf pack rounds hitting targets were counting as Relentless Strikes hits and breaking the ammo economy on sword. Right, but I think that's the only change that they've made to that majorly, right?
Yeah. So this would be the third situation where we're having a quote-unquote G-Horn type of utility scenario, and I just couldn't remember whether or not Ergo Sum had a massive just nerf or something, or they just kind of balanced it a little bit. Like I'm hopeful that Hierarchy of Needs isn't going to affect us as much as Ergo Sum, like Ergo Sum, and not like G-Horn Pack Hunter. But until we get our hands in it, I totally understand where Sammy's coming from.
Yeah. Also got Darcy.
Thank you so much for validating my feelings and not saying I'm over.
Well, like I said, I only thought of the positive side of it. My thought is you're in a day one raid. Levy is like, okay, this is actually usable here. We're gonna have one person be our Pack Hunter person. They just do Hierarchy of Needs, and they're gonna have a backup crossbow as their heavy DPS. They're gonna have the ability to have either Frenzy, maybe Bait and Switch or something. So now we're gonna have this whole situation where they can also be. I was just thinking about all the positives, and I was like, oh well, Sammy makes some really valid points.
When it's I can't say
with
you're
that
wrong
as well. Especially with Prismatic, you can go ahead and use some of those to debuff. So you might have 4 people shooting levies through it, And then you've got someone shooting Trinity Ghoul, get that extra damage, and then also debuff it on top of that. So then you've got 4 bows right there. And you've got, I don't know how many different buffs. You could use Vergilus Curve.
Yeah.
You could use Wish Keeper. You can go ahead and just get as many different debuffs through there.
Don't they have a bow with
possible.
slice, so you can then sever as well?
Yeah. And then there are too many options right now. And they're not going to go ahead and change hierarchy of needs. There's no way that they could probably do that to balance all of them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be abused. It is going to be abused because there's no other way that out of any other archetypes you are going to get this many different debuffs and options and damage as using 4 different bows hierarchy. Using 5 different bows, some of them hard DPS like Leviathan's Breath, which people have used for day 1 raids and day 1 dungeons and such.
Yeah.
There's just no way. Like, that is going to be something people are going to try. And if it comes out to be, as you're working with Prismatic, it is just OP, then we have a problem. And I'm sorry, I'm getting so worked up right now.
It's okay.
No, but I mean, it's good to fear for, like, you have this thing that's your niche, and now it's going to get buffed, and that's great. And then it gets buffed too much, and you get like 2 or 3 months, and then it's like slammed down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I that's real.
I'd rather
Not that that's
be
ever happened
slammed
before,
down.
right?
Right.
No.
Never. Never happened before.
And people are like, "Oh, I want to run all bows like you," and I'm like, "That's really great. I'm glad I inspired you to do that. Please don't."
Please stop making number go up. Please stop making number go up. They're going to notice.
They're gonna notice.
I think here, just for time, let's talk about how power is changing in Edge of Fate versus and then go into audience questions. We have a lot of things to cover still. But I don't want this to be like a 4-hour episode if we can help it. So with the power band, they're going to be changing it so that like it's not locked out weekly. You can climb as long as you want to play. And you can go from 10 to 20 just by like traditionally doing the or the soft cap by doing the Edge of Fate expansion or from PvP, patrolling your favorite classic destination, what have you. You could then increase that up. It looks like through seasonal power, and seasonal power is how you'll increase that through artifact bonus power. This will last like the 6 months of what an expansion is. Of like of what a season is, and then this cap goes up to 450, and then after that, after Ash and Iron, it looks like it's gated so that you can get 500 total power by Ash and Iron through Prime Ingrams, or 550 with Prime Ingrams up to the hard cap there, and then that would all come back down for Renegades. Down to a base of 200, if I'm reading this correctly. How do we feel about this? I know that this has worked in other games. We've had it in Destiny before. It feels like, just not in a while. How's everybody feeling?
It's been a couple years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I feel like this is really common in other MMOs, right? And I don't know, people are going to like that, but that is kind of like it's closer to like an MMO industry standard type of a behavior, I think. And I don't think it's like really that much different from what we've experienced in the past with power. If anything, it's just more direct of this is what it is. This is when it's going to change. And it's something that we've kind of seen already. Yeah. With the artifact, number go up, trying to get that like plus 20 power from the artifact and the grind that was. It's a little bit different to see it tied to the gear. I'm open to it. I don't know if it's going to massively shake up like the feeling of grinding power in the game, but we'll see. It's something new to try, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, cool. Okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know how the community is going to respond. And I hope that Bungie decides to make a position and stick with it, because if the community is vocal enough, they'll walk it back 100%. But if this is what they want the game to be moving forward, then stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cryo Phoenix, I want to try the top end of things for the tier 5 gear, but otherwise it's just the same old power grind. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see people doing this first 3 months or whenever they can to get to tier 5. I think this one, the first one, will be the most important, because if they get to tier 5 and they feel like it's worth doing again, it'll be good. But if they go all the way up there and they're like, I don't want to do this again, then it's gonna not be as good of a look for Bungie. But either way, if they make that decision as a company, please stick with it.
Cryo Phoenix also brings up Fireteam Power, and I believe that they said that Fireteam Power still existed. So
it still exists,
for activities. So that still functions as we have it right now, which I've liked that change.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Just being able to hop in with buds. So there's going to be somebody in every Discord that people are going to be like, hey, can you do you want to run this thing with me? Like, that's just
I need your power level.
Yeah, I need your power level real quick. The weekly lockout change, I think, is probably the best thing there, because making it so that you have to kind of clock in every week, it was
but
painful.
I don't know if anyone knows. I couldn't find myself when I was just researching. Is the power lockout only in the portal? Or is it also going to affect the rest of the game? Or is it just a portal? Because if you can do this in dungeons and raids, that'd be really great. But from what I can tell, it seems like it's only portal, and the raid, for example, will still have like 3 a week or something. I couldn't find anything personally. I just wanted to bring it up, see if anyone knew.
If you could just go watch these 7 videos, there might be something in there for you. That's all I got. Sorry,
I've watched them all already.
It says in the power band paragraph or section, it says lots of activity content will exist in the power band, including the entirety of the Edge of Fate expansion pack, event activities, all legacy content, and even the new raid. While these activities won't ask you to earn more than 200 power to play at max effectiveness, they may offer rewards above 200 when played at harder difficulties. That doesn't answer your question at all. But my guess
I'll just wait and see then.
Yeah, my guess would be that things that they listed within that power band should help push that up.
Yeah.
Without it locking you down per week. I could see them maybe limiting raids and dungeons, just to make them more premier end-game content, and that would
they
be
might
the only
just
reason
limit
why.
the exotic, maybe.
Yeah.
I just want them to take away rotations.
Okay.
I don't see them doing that.
You want that Master Ghost 24/7? I hear you.
Oh my god.
I'm thinking back to another time in which our power level is entirely tied to the gear that we had on for a long time.
I kind of missed that, actually.
In this game. Oh, and that's kind of right. That's kind of what we're getting here again. And the one, when I think about, it's a good system. It's very easy to tell what level you're going to be based on your gear.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we had for a long time, and we've had some form of that in the game now. But the one crux of that was a really long time ago of getting stuck at Forever 29.
Yeah.
And you have to take on these activities, and I wonder how, I'm sure this has come up at some point, but are there any fall off points where you're only able to earn up to power 250 gear until you take on this next level of challenges that are at 300? And is there a crux point in those deltas that could feel bad. And this does open itself up to that hypothetical. That was like one of the first power progression issues we ever had in this game. So I'm like really hoping that people in QA and design have brought this up already. But
yeah,
we gonna see.
Yeah, there's a bunch more in the TWID that we didn't get to. Shout out to GCX getting a panel for the narrative stuff in Destiny 2. That's huge. And I'll probably be there live for that. That sounds fun. They also had Destiny 2 expansion open access. I believe now until like the drop
22nd
till the 22nd. So that's sick.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's move into community questions. We have 4 that I pulled from chat. Landfell asks, is now a good time to pick up Destiny 2 again after taking a break since the final shape? I mean,
is it better to wait a week and a half or whatever and just drop in now, or like with everyone else at Edge of Fate?
I would do that at this point. Yes, just wait until Edge of Fate comes out.
Because what can you do I guess you could log in, check your characters real quick, pick up like Choir of One from Xur maybe.
Vault cleaning.
Pick up. Yeah, definitely go to Xur and get Choir of One. Like, that has been a weapon that people have continuously sought after. I know because I see the comments on the video that I made for it, like last year.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm still getting comments that's like, hey, this helped me. And it's like, cool, like sick. But if you could get it for free and you don't have to go through like hours and hours of running through it, like just go get that. So go get Choir 1 from Xur. And then honestly, just like, if you're going to play Destiny this week, just play it to play it
lightly.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do any like hardcore grind before Edge of Fate. I would just play with your buds. Maybe chase down something that you were looking for. But 1 or 2 things. Don't like blow yourself out right before Edge of Fate. I ended up doing that with Into the Light, and that ruined my experience for into Final Shape. And so, with Edge of Fate, there's so many changes. It's going to be, it's probably going to feel in some regards like a brand new game. Just the way that you interact with it. That
some people are calling this Destiny 3.
Yeah, like essentially like Destiny 3.0.
I mean,
Destiny 3 Lite. That's what some people are calling it.
Destiny 3.0. Yeah.
Like,
would you guys say it's worth playing through episode echoes at this point?
Playing through it? No.
I'm
watch a
at
YouTube
seasonal
video with the
track
cutscenes.
5.
No.
Or seasonal track level 5.
Play something else.
Watch the
Sammy.
Videos.
Play something else for the week. Enjoy
You get
your
Risk of
time.
Rain 2 for $8 on Steam right now.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, that's.
I still have a solo GM to do.
Do that.
Do that.
Instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't
I
do
just
that,
wanted to
folks.
know whether or not it's like I should really play through episode echoes.
Yeah.
Because
The
all
only
of the
reason is
weapons are getting added to Xur and some other places. Like you'll be able to get all those if someone's like worried
Is
about
the
that.
activity worth it or anything?
No, I wouldn't.
Have you?
I
Well, do
haven't
it
It's a
done
once.
battleground. It's a battleground.
Yeah. The
Okay.
exotic mission is cool.
Exotic mission.
It is cool.
Do that once.
Do that one once, but yeah, don't break your back
I don't
trying
even
to like.
have it unlocked, I don't think.
Then I wouldn't worry about
If
it.
somebody
worry
has
about it.
I have the
that you know,
seasonal
you can-
activity unlocked.
Get it from Sir.
Yeah. You can
Okay.
join in on a. You got a friend.
Yeah.
that He's got
Yeah,
all this
yeah,
stuff
if you have a
unlocked.
Yeah, then
that
have
has
someone
it, you
else
can
do it
join
for
on
you.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just, if you haven't played it in over a year, I don't know that there's anything that's going to benefit you from grinding out
Yeah.
like
No.
anything.
Not
this
enough for a
week.
week.
Yeah.
Nah,
So
you don't
just-
need these illegal armor rolls.
Yeah.
It's a niche. It's
Yeah.
It's
You haven't needed them the entire year. You're probably good. Madalat, because he missed Sammy's thoughts on the crossbow last week, wants to know more
Yeah.
about what you might think on that heavy crossbow, Sammy.
I will okay, this is one of those things where I have to see it to know. A big thing is that there's not a lot of ammo for it. There's a lot of utility for it, I feel, but it depends on damage. It depends on reload. It depends on animations. Like there's a lot that it'll depend on that we just don't know yet. So I compare everything to, can I use this in Master Ghost of the Deep? I don't think it would be as good for boss damage as people think it will be. I think it'll be great for majors and ultras. I do not think it's the call for a boss whatsoever.
Especially with the animation where you have to go and get your bolt back.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Well,
like
you don't have to get it back.
Right.
You can also just shoot it, but like Sammy said, there's only like 10 shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want infinite, you have to then go get it. So.
Yeah.
But I also am willing to see the perks first, because if there's like rewind rounds or something, then that solves that issue.
I feel like it could be a very, very good option. One reason I am so excited about it. Okay, well, there's two things. I am so excited that there is a legendary heavy crossbow because I told you so. Hell yeah. Woohoo. Years ago. Spirit Finger Jazz Hands. But that also means that a typical bow, it wouldn't make sense for them to put a legendary typical bow in the heavy slot.
Right.
Yeah.
So that means that I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Something else. They introduced another bow subfamily where it over penetrates on shot.
Yep. That's the longbow.
That's longbow.
Are you
basically Wish Ender?
Yeah. Basically Wish Ender, the legendary. So are you more excited for that?
I am.
Yeah. Okay.
I call it my little wish baby.
Perfect.
Just like the Salvation's Edge. Our bow is my baby ghoul. It's my wish baby. We'll have to go ahead and see just how well that works. I'm excited for it. I am. I think I'll use my kinetic slot a lot more. I would like it to have shoot to loot kinetic tremors.
It definitely has that. There's no way it doesn't.
I like it. Then it wouldn't make my kinetic slot quite so useless.
Yeah. Madalat.
I do wish that we were getting a strand bow, though, because we only have one strand bow and it's precision.
Yeah.
Madalat in chat says, imagine if it broke Ekthar and Samuma over shield in 1 or 2 shots. Just imagine.
Hot.
Beautiful.
Just imagine.
Oh my, I would cry. I would just, guys, did you even think about this? It's a little off track, but did you even think about this? Next season, there is a very, very good chance there will not be any Void Surge weeks. Did anyone even consider this?
No.
Because I did, and it just makes me so sad and scared.
Oh, for your master.
No one else.
Wow.
No one else was a little bit concerned about it.
Well, I was assuming that they won't have that anymore because we'll be able to pick our own.
Oh, but for dungeons and such and raids.
I don't know.
Nah, surely they'll throw you a self-build crafting every now and then for free, right? They're not going to just like, it's only bad now. That's it. It's just negative modifiers, strictly good luck.
It's called It's Only Bad Now.
It's only bad now.
It stasis surge every week. And just stasis surge.
It's only bad now. That's great. Gray Fox asks, where do you want world tiers to be applied to old content? What funny things would you make happen in the world with higher tiers? So if you're given the option to take it outside of Kepler.
I would turn every planet to tier 5. Yeah.
Yeah. But they got to have, there's got to be gear tiers associated with it to back it up. Yeah. I'm totally with that.
Pale Heart would probably be the one that you could most easily 1-to-1 it. Since you're like dealing with a space.
That's probably the only other place they can let it go, because imagine a new Guardian on the Cosmodrome loading into my tier 5
Oh
instance
god.
now. And being like, what is this game?
It'd be kind of funny,
Yeah.
but kind of
I'm
sad.
gonna do it.
Yeah.
Randall the Vandal Part 2.
Oh my god, yes.
Tier 5
Yeah.
Randalls, dude, watch out.
Yep.
Final question of the night, Subsistence Sasquatch. Legendary campaigns have never had champions. Would y'all be opposed to seeing Banes in them?
Give me Banes.
Yeah, come on.
Bands are fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would like them to
Banes.
retire some Drain Banes or like.
Well, we're
just
getting new
Drain Banes.
ones.
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
that they however, replace the Drain Banes with the new ones.
No drain paints.
You want that gravity Bane that they showed off? That's gonna be
You know,
interesting.
I think those could be fun as long as I can have my health with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a
Go for
I
it.
got an interesting cap for you. So we've seen this big trend of Banes. They kind of gain player verbs, right? So that was
Mhm.
this volatile, shock with some kind of a jolt, right? Or there's a Threadlink's Bane. If you guys could give a player type of ability to a Bane, what would it be?
If I could give a player ability or like a player verb.
Yeah, you could be nice or you could be like sadistic. That's up to you. All right.
Well,
Ooh. Okay.
I would think
I feel
Tether.
like that's interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
really go hard
Tether.
and just make
Ooh.
Tether. So, like, like when you get hit by attacks from an enemy, that it grabs you and your other guardians, and it just multiplies that damage toward all of you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
That's pretty good.
I was thinking something a lot less than tether. It was just like verb still, but like I was thinking like give him volt shot, just intrinsic volt shot. Or like anything that like spreads, give them a prismatic version of volt shot, incandescent, and volatile. Just that kind of flavor. Just on all attacks could be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely opened up a really interesting space, as far as
Yeah.
like enemy design goes. And the scorch stuff too is interesting. Imagine you have that like Golgoroth fight mechanic where if you get too many scorch attacks, you're gonna ignite your teammates, and now like people are mad, right? You're killing your buds over here. Yeah.
okay, hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Bane where once you start shooting it, you have to keep shooting it. Otherwise, hear me out. Hear it.
Okay.
You have to keep shooting it and do damage. Otherwise, it'll start to heal and take your health for about like 3 or 4 seconds after. So you have to start I start doing damage to it, right? And then I would end up getting health for whatever damage I take from it. But once I stop doing damage, it'll start to take my health and start to heal. And that would be like, I don't know, for like 5 to 8 seconds after. So you can stop, but you would have to deal with the consequences.
Okay, what if it was like Devour versus them getting Devour procced off of you and stealing your health, right? To bring this into like a verb, to the idea of like Devour always has this idea of like you kill something, you gain health from it. And if you don't kill it, it's going to like, reverse curse you, right? To your point of it's taking health back. I don't know.
This one's inspired by Expedition 33 Claire Obscure. Doing an enemy works an inverse on you, so it would be a beam.
Oh, yeah.
It would be a beam that attributes to you, and any healing that you accumulate, like that is sent your way, is actually damage. That would be interesting.
Sounds cruel.
Yeah.
Ship it.
I'm here for it. Yep.
Yeah.
Ship it.
That would be super neat. But yeah, those are all the questions fit to print. So, dude, thank you, Saint Kabir, for joining us tonight. You've been an awesome guest. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Why don't you tell the people at home where they can find you, what you have coming up, and especially about Podcast versus Enemies.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to get to meet you guys more formally. Just spend some time chatting about the game we all play. So thanks for that. Yeah, my name's Snake Beard. You can find me on Twitter, and you can also find me every week hosting episodes of PvE Podcast versus Enemies. If you want to know more about combatant damage scalers and why that's such a huge change, come by, listen to some more episodes. We did an episode recently on the Melee sandbox and kind of theory crafting about Melee builds and what's really nerfed and what's really buff and how that's all going to play out. So yeah, it's been great content. Happy to host that with Court and Impetus every week. I don't do a ton of streaming, but I will be streaming a lot whenever we get back into Edge of Fate, always streaming the contest mode raids.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to come talk about new builds and stuff like that, I'll be doing some streams over the next few weeks and streaming contest mode. So come hang out and watch me and Court and Impetus just bash our heads into our keyboards for like a really long time, It'll
for at
really
least a
cool.
weekend.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I super appreciate it. It's great hanging out with you guys.
Always, man. It was a pleasure. You're welcome back anytime. Epic Dan, what about you, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on the Twitch, just prepping for the new raid in the next week and a half. So I'm there pretty much every day doing some sort of prep on twitch.tv/epicdan22. You can find me putting as a fair amount of stuff in the next couple of weeks on YouTube as well. Same name, epicdan22. And on TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. If you Google epicdan22, you're probably going to find me.
Perfect. Asefa, what about you, friend?
I'm wrapping up my season right now, so not much. Just wrapping up and then reading books. So you can find me on Blue Sky. That's pretty much the only platform I really use anymore. If you want to talk or just DM or send I'm not gonna call them what they are called. I hate that word. If you wanna interact on Blue Sky, I'm more than happy to do so. That's pretty much
You don't want people to skeet at you?
I hate that word so much. I hate it so much. No,
it bothers me too.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Stop it.
Very much.
I really don't like this word. But yeah, so pretty much Blue Sky. Blue Sky is it. That's where it is if you want to find me.
Sammy Cat, where can people find you, friend?
You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SammyCat. You can also find me on YouTube at SammyCat. And then I am SammyCat I'm SammyCat Plays on Twitter and TikTok and some other places as well. But mostly Twitch and Twitter.
Hell yeah. My name is Danfinity. You can find me everywhere. Danfinity GG, somewhere there's a period in there. You can just check out my website, danfinity.gg, for all the important stuff. You join the Discord. I believe that's discord.gg/Danfinity. Good folks in there. This week, I don't really have a lot. I'm probably just going to be playing a lot of Mass Effect in the off hours because I've been rocking through the side quests on the first one. This
isn't your first time playing Mass Effect, is it?
It's not my first time playing Mass Effect 1, but yeah, it's my first time trying to go through and do every side quest that I can before getting into the final fight there. So there's that, and then the only other thing that I can think of is that so I played D&D. I've played D&D a couple of times now, and each time I played as a character, it was a bard character for a campaign with the Tall Tale Tavern, and the second time I showed up on their show is during Expedition Untold number 17 that came out this week, and it was a lot of fun. So go check that one out. It's they're just really fun people. And excited to see your reactions to it. So that's it from me. Other than that, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast and for hanging out with us tonight. And I hope you find what you're grinding for.